sound from my computer I want them to hear. Well, in fact, he's lived all his life in Adelaide until the last year, and he has moved to Sydney, which is a real bonus for Sydney chess. He's an international master, made his debut at the Moscow Olympiad in 1994 at the age of 17, and he was so unknown that when the Australian team played the Americans and Trevor made a very, very easy draw with board for, and we don't have a single game of his in our database. And I just said, because he lives in Adelaide. Yeah, nobody sees the games from Adelaide. So, and that's not quite so true anymore because of Leachess, but certainly back then. And we, in fact, drew that match 2-2, which was quite a good achievement, thanks to Trevor. And we also had another 17-year-old John Paul Wallace in the team as well. So it was a very good young team in Moscow. The Moscow Olympiad '94 being memorable as the by far the worst ever chess Olympiad by quite a mile. And okay, our second seed is Yi Lu from Queensland, not even an international master, though he's gone very close on multiple occasions. Well, it was part of Australia's super team that played in the World Youth Olympiad about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. the team that included Bobby Cheng, Anton Smirnov. Who else did we have? We've got Ari Dale, now an international master, who's played in the second group in Vikings. And anyway, Yi has always regarded himself as the ugly duckling, the only one who didn't get an international master or grandmaster title quite soon after the tournament. That was a little bit unlucky. I think we finished about 7th, and we were playing Russia in the last round, and we had them on toast, but lost 2.5, 1.5, and they finished 2nd, and we dropped down to 6th or 7th. But yeah, India had run away with that event, but we had very good chance of coming 2nd. It was simply a very, very good team. Okay, board 3 is George C., who's basically been the closest you can possibly get to becoming a grandmaster without actually becoming one. He's from Sydney, and he has scored all 3 required grandmaster results to become a grandmaster, but you need also to get a rating of 2,500. He got to 2,490, had a bad result, chased after those points, had another bad result, chased after them, and his rating basically crashed. And so it took him a long time to come to terms with the fact that he probably wasn't going to get back up to 2,500. Of course, he got older, and it's harder and harder to get rating points. And yeah, he is, but he started to play actively in the last few years. His rating is, well, crawling up, if you like, but it's not going to get to 2,500. He's already 40 years old now, but yeah, 15 years ago, he was one of the very best players in the country. In fact, there was a generation of himself, David Smurden, and Zhao Zongyuan, and those 3 were 1 year apart. And the problem for George was he was in the middle. So if it was an under 14 and under 16 event, they'd send Zhao Zongwan and David Smurden. And then a year later, Zhao Zongwan would be eligible for the under 16. So George wouldn't get to go to the under 16 either, because Zhao was a little bit stronger than him. Once or twice in World Junior events, but he would have done quite well. Our 4th seed is Sukai Ji. I noticed he came quite late, and in fact, something must have gone wrong, because he sat down, played a few moves, offered his opponent, Terence Tang, a draw, and his opponent was gratefully accepted it, Terence Tang being a student from UNSW who actually took the last year off in order to really improve his chess. So he has kicked on quite a bit. Then our 5th seed is the veteran Daryl Johansson, now at the 66-year mark. The player who's won the most Australian championships ever, 6. Remember, it's only every 2nd year, so it's not so easy to win. He's 2 ahead of the nearest rivals, but the last time he won a championship was in 2012. Even that was quite impressive, in his 50s, and it was ahead of Zhao Zongwan and George C. and so on. But in 2012, as he pointed out, he won $3,000 first prize, and he's playing in 2026, and it's still $3,000 first prize. So he did note that the prize money in these events seems to have been frozen. He's also won, I believe, 14 times the tournament in Ballarat, the Begonia Open, the big weekender that's been going for a long time, and has represented Australia in, I think it's around 13, 14 chess Olympiads, starting back in 1982, and he's also captained a number of Australian teams. So he's more or less done everything. He decided to play in this event, and he's really cutting down on the number of events he's playing, because it was 1 round a day, and the weekenders where you're playing 2 or 3 games a day, he just doesn't have the stamina. You'll regularly see him at the end of the first or even halfway through the second day being one of the leaders, and then he just collapses towards the end. So hopefully here he can survive the 11 days at only 1 game a day. We'll certainly see. Then on board 6 is Lee Tri Kien from Vietnam, although he may well be playing for Australia reasonably soon, like Sukai Ji was Singaporean until 2023. and then he realised that if he changed federation, he could play the zonal tournament. So in January 2023, he changed federation and just in time to play a zonal event. Li Tri Kien is studying down in Melbourne, and yeah, well, who knows if he's definitely going to stay in Australia, but he's certainly been playing pretty well. Our seventh seed is, I believe, 11 years old, Ranch Chakrabarti. He has been absolutely sensational. In fact, if he had his rating of 4 months ago, he would even be seated in the top 5. So he has really had a fantastic period of improvement in the last 2 years. And well, he's on one of those yo-yos that juniors sometimes get, that they overshoot their true strength for a little bit and then they go backwards and then they jump forwards even more. So Chakrabarti's played overseas quite a bit, and he's part of a very strong generation of juniors from New South Wales, but he's definitely the pick of the crop at the moment. There is a 12-year-old in this field, yeah, just down the bottom. Our 12th seed is 12 years old, so he's got someone, well, if you could say someone a year older is on his heels. But really, he's out there as the outstanding junior of this period in Australian chess, and he's seeded 7th, which is pretty amazing. Now, a number of people have said, well, why is there only one grandmaster in the field? Isn't this a very weak Australian field? But you've got to realise that although Australia has 10 grandmasters, there are very few who are playing actively in Australia at the moment. For example, you've got Bobby Cheng, who's taken a finance job in Amsterdam, who plays the Bundesliga in Germany and the Dutch league and so on. But unless he's coming back home for Christmas, then he won't be playing an event like this. Similarly, Justin Tan, who was working in finance in London, and again, he'll only come back if there's a family reason for doing so rather than a chess reason, because they get extremely strong competition where they are at the time. So that's 2 ruled out. Anton Smirnov has more or less retired from serious chess, and I'm saying that of someone who's just turned 25, I think. But he became our youngest ever grandmaster. But Anton is actually modelling himself on Bobby Cheng. So he's got a job in Sydney in finance, and he's trying to get a transfer to Amsterdam. So Anton Smirnov is simply not playing classical tournaments anymore. I think the last event he played might have been a rapid event down in Tasmania, something like that. Who else have we got? Well, I'm retired. David Smurden, who's a professor at the University of Queensland, is, again, like Anton, only playing occasional rapid events. It's really the case that there's not a generation of players like myself and Darryl Johansson that become chess professionals anymore, that almost all of them have decided to take on other things. Now, David Smurden at least stayed a chess professional until he became a grandmaster, which was a lot more complicated. He actually got into George C's position where he got his 3 grandmaster norms and couldn't get to 2,500, and played overseas, still couldn't quite get there. Finally, he got the title by playing in the New South Wales Open and scoring 100%, and that pushed him the 10 points he needed over to get the grandmaster title. In the meantime, Xiaozong Wan, who's our grandmaster from Coffs Harbour, had taken a university break. He's a doctor now, and he'd taken a break, gone off to Europe to play 4 tournaments. 3 of them were grandmaster norms, and one of them pushed him over 2,500. So in 8 weeks, he scored all his grandmaster norms, came home to Australia to resume university, and overtook Smurden, who already had his 3 before Zhao left on his holiday. So Xiaozong Wan would normally be a possible player here, but he's just headed off overseas. He just played the Hong Kong Open, and he's headed for other events. Similarly, our defending champion, Rishi Sardana, who is only an international master, is right now, no, actually, in 5 hours, will be playing the last round of the Rilton Cup in Sweden alongside another Australian women's Olympic player, Zhang Nguyen. So again, you've got lots of strong tournaments in Europe over this winter period. Vaikonsei is an obvious one. So the players who really want to improve don't necessarily play the national championship, and so it's sort of left to the really good juniors to knock over the slightly older veterans, if you like. Anyway, so after Ranch Chakrabarti, who really is a genuine hope to become the youngest ever winner of the championship, I believe. I think that might be held by John Paul Wallace, an Australian now living in Norway. But I do know that Bobby Cheng did win an Australian Open at 13. So there has been success pretty young in the past. But Ranch would be by at least a couple of years the youngest to win a national title if he can win it. Okay, on board 8 is Melbourne International Master David Cannon. He actually got a relatively soft international master title from the Oceania Junior and then set about improving dramatically to justify it. So he really started studying after he got the international master title and has done very well, although real life has taken over in the last year or so. So he's got a regular job and so on. Okay, on board 9 is Sterling Bayaka, former Australian junior champion from Sydney. Has had very good results in this last year, but really hasn't cracked victories in top tournaments. He's quite capable, though, of beating or drawing with the very best players, but whether he's got the consistency is another question. Okay, on board 10, we've got Bayaskalan Kishigbata from Mongolia, although she has been in Australia quite a while. Her two brothers, significantly younger brothers, are also quite good players. I question the She won the New South Wales Open and the New South Wales Championship and a lot of the major weekend tournaments, and she was absolutely dominating on the tournament circuit here. She did go back to Mongolia to play the Mongolian Women's Championship a few months ago. I think she came in third, which she regarded as a bit of a disappointment, but she is only 19 and seems to be improving every time she comes out. So she'll be a real danger for everyone. Number 11 is Ryder Testelen, who is an international master elect because he just won the Oceania Junior under 20, and board 12 I mentioned Harvey Zhu before. So, yep, all good.
All the names showing up now.
I better refresh and see. Hang on.
On here.
Yes, I think I've got a link here. I just refresh and get out of there in a tick.
Yeah. I've honestly just said screw the delay, so there's no delay on anything.
There's no delay on anything?
Yes, because it is causing me too many issues with the delay.
Okay, well, okay. So good news for anyone who wants to go home from the commentary. You'll be able to watch the games live today and today only. They would normally have a time delay on the broadcast because otherwise someone in Mongolia could be watching the broadcast, sending a secret message to Bayaskalan, who'll have an earpiece, invisible nanotechnology earpiece, and she'll be accepting the advice and winning everything. Well, that's the theory anyway. There's a lot of FIDE anti-cheating rules that probably are not terribly applicable to Australia, although we did have, we've had some crude cheating cases with people hiding a telephone in the loo and that sort of thing and referring to it. And we had one serious case of someone with an accomplice suggesting things through an earpiece, but generally it just hasn't been much of a problem. But of course, you take more care with a national championship, of course, too. So, but okay, round one. isn't like that. So let us have a look.
Your laptop sound is not being captured.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Right. Okay, so let's have a look at the very first game. And that is the battle between Australian Olympian Zhang Jilin and Trevor Tao. Now, I should have mentioned, by the way, that Trevor Tao is not the most famous person in his family. When he moved to Sydney, he moved next door to his brother, who is Terence Tao. And those of you with a background in mathematics will know that he's probably the greatest mathematician in the world of his generation. He won the Fields Medal at about 25, which is like the Nobel Prize for mathematics. And the only reason he hasn't won it more often is you're only allowed to win it once. So in a way, Trevor becoming an international master and playing for Australia at 17 is overshadowed by his successful older brother. But anyway, so they're finally in the same state after many, many years. So that's actually pretty good. Okay, so Zhang Jilin, last minute entry actually, because her son was originally omitted from the championship field, which she didn't think was very fair. And also, if she played, then her husband would be looking after 3 kids on holidays during the period of the tournament. So she decided she wasn't going to play. And then 2 days ago, I think, her son was admitted. The new international ratings came out on January 1st, and they basically qualified him for the event. So she changed her mind, but she's going in with not that much preparation. And yeah, in form, well, at her best when she was playing, well, she's top scored in our last 2 Olympic teams, I think. She's anyway a very strong player. But Trevor Tao is a bit of a test. Hang on, I've got them the wrong way around, haven't I? I have too. That was silly. Where did I put it? Have I?
On the board.
Oh, yeah, okay. So here we go. And the game starts with a Trompovsky attack, bishop g5. So the main idea of this line is to take on f6 and play against those double pawns. And, well, it's a surprise weapon. I know when the Australian player Chris De Pasquale took this particular line, 94h4, to Europe, it was actually an invention by another Adelaide player, Alan Goldsmith. He said it worked unbelievably well in Europe, partly because people were not used to thinking on move 2. And everyone expected to get their pieces out and then start thinking, and you're setting them some problems immediately. Now, Zhang Jilin knows what she's doing. E6, allowing E4, because then you go H6. And in order to save this guy, you have to give up your pair of bishops. White has lots of space, but the good players are very happy to sit back with the bishops. And this system has scored well. So in fact, what Trevor does is just say, okay, I'm playing E3, I'm playing some sort of Torre attack, quiet system, I'm not too worried. So H6, he doesn't want to swap. C5. Now the one downside of putting the bishop over here is that at some point queen b6 will hit that pawn, which is no longer protected. So Zhang Jilin is immediately trying to exploit the fact that the bishop's a little bit offside. So knight d2. That way, if queen b6, you've got knight c4 all the time. So bishop here blocks the pin. And, oh no, it swapped first, sorry. Doesn't want to waste a move with the bishop if white takes. Takes, bishop e7. Now, if white decides to play c4, which would be logical, 2 pawns in the center, his knight on d2 is not well placed. Because if you're going to play c4, you may as well have your knight on c3 on an active square. So more likely he's going to play a quiet system with c3. But first he gets some pieces out. Knight out, and so does black. Bishop out, bishop here, and castles. So here black has a choice. You can certainly occupy the center. Sorry, you can certainly develop the knight to c6 after c3. I vaguely recall having a rather difficult game against Victor Korchnoi where he threw knight h5 at me and anyway, did very, very well. But the flexible way to play is d6 with knight d7. And yeah, although you're not trying to take the center, you do know that if white gets c4, it is highly unlikely they're going to get c5, and even d5 is difficult to get. So although white will have a bit of space, those pawns won't be going anywhere. And now some a weird move by Tao. He is famous for thinking very differently to his rivals. Now, you don't really want to go a4 here because we still haven't put the knight on d7, so you can play knight c6 if you want and slow that pawn down. But c3 or c4 would be entirely natural. And or even something simple like rook e1, just waiting to see, because you know this rook is probably going to want to go to e1. You know this pawn is probably going to want to advance. I'm not sure you want to play h3. In fact, it's one of those rabbit ears moves that you feel like it's a waste of time. Whereas h6 attacked a bishop, h3 doesn't prevent anything really. It's super weird. So instead of castling, Jilin decides to immediately play knight here because there is no bishop g3 anymore because your pawn structure is wrecked. So you're going to have to swap most likely, and then the knight will be threatening to come to f4 all the time. So you'd have to regard this as very easy for black. So bishop took, queen took. Notice how she's not scared of bishop check. You could just play knight d7 or even bishop c6. They're all going to be fine. So rook e1. Maybe there'll be a d5 move sometime, but it certainly doesn't look scary. Knight f4 immediately. Oh, hang on. 20. Oh, yeah, no, knight f4. Yeah, I'd almost certainly want to castle and keep that in reserve. I want to keep white worrying about it rather than actually play it, because it's very easy to play bishop back here and later on to play g3 and get rid of it. Whereas if you don't go there immediately, then white's natural queen e2 move is not going to be playable for a while, and you might get white to play g3 as a defensive move without actually attacking anything. So castles, yeah, indeed. G3, knight goes back, and bishop g2. And I'm afraid you've given two tempi to white to knock your knight back to where it was, and in the meantime play g3, bishop d2, yep, and make your king solid.
Did he put his knight on d5 instead of h5?
Oh, she did too. You're absolutely right. Is it a good move though? You're going to get hit again. One of the reasons I like kingside fianchettos against queenside fianchettos is that generally this guy's protected and that guy often isn't, for example, after knight d7. So you're more likely to get some tactics against this guy than you are against this guy. And so black is the one who has to be a bit more careful. So I don't know if c4 and d5 is coming, but it is something black has to be aware of. At the moment, I think you'll be able to block with e5 when you need to. And yeah, that looks completely okay. Okay, there's some idea. Let's say we play knight d7. So c4, we move back. d5, knight here. This could be scary. Not only is knight f5 a threat to win a pawn right now, but knight c6 could be a very, very good pawn on c6 with that bishop backing that up on g2. And although you can leave that knight alone on c6, it's pretty hard to leave it alone for the rest of the game. So I think that is exactly what Trevor Tao is threatening. And it's a little bit scary if you can't actually play a sensible developing move like knight d7 here. Knight f6 is probably okay. Yeah, just not really sure. Oh, more moves. And they came in a rush, which is weird. Okay, so she wants her queen off the line of that rook, but also, oh, what happened there? Also to protect the bishop after knight d7. So c4 played. Knight here, rook c1. I'm not so scared of that. I don't think b4 and c5 is such a worry. d5, e5, there is no knight d4, so that works okay. So all in all, yeah, I don't know. Rook c1's just a good, healthy move. It's not as if it's going to create lots of threats, but it just gets another piece into the game, and we'll see if, yeah, White definitely wants to play d5 sometime. Whether you can, I don't know if you can do it. I mean, even if we play knight d7 and d5 and we just take once and go queen back to d8, again, you have to worry about that d5 pawn. So, yeah, if I had that knight on a better square, White would have a clear advantage here, I think. But right now, it's not doing too much. It's a very unusual style of Torre attack because, of course, normally the white bishop will be sitting here pointing at the king side. Here it's on g2, so all the action is going to be on the queen side. So we'll see how that goes.
Currently, it's on this screen. If you want to switch to, you just press on it, and it will.
Sure.
Switch to this one, and we this one.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So let's check out board 2, which is a heavy-duty battle in the French. So as you can see from there, now we've got Jesse Zafirakis. Zafirakis had a very good year this year, but he's a young player from Melbourne. But he actually bombed out a bit in the the Oceania Junior Championship, which finished a couple of weeks ago. So and actually he also bombed out in another Melbourne tournament. So he finished the year really badly. It's probably why his seeding has dropped so much, because yeah, his December results were pretty dreadful. And he'd done something super good earlier this last year. He where was it? Yeah, 7 out of 7 in a Melbourne Chess Club. It was very strong Melbourne Chess Club round robin, and 3rd in the last Melbourne International Open, which was really strong. So yeah, so Jesse he's not a junior anymore. He just snuck into the Oceania under 20 division. He's 21 now already. Okay, so I've got them the wrong way around too. Unbelievable. Oh. So, French defence. Yi has been playing this his whole career. And Zafirakis goes for knight c3, which a lot of the top Australians are not willing to do anymore. You see knight d2 much more often. Gary Lane, for example, in this tournament has had a lot of good victories with it. But okay, we're getting a genuine Winawer variation, old-fashioned stuff. a3. And Yi doesn't go for anything fancy like bishop a5. This is actually the line with black that caused the most problems for Bobby Fischer. And yeah, he was, when he was young, he was constantly outplayed. Didn't really understand when to defend these pawns, when to allow it to be blocked, and so on. So 97, queen a5 is also possible. In fact, Bobby Chang is the other top Australian who plays this a bit. He plays queen a5, bishop here, queen a4, and tries to blockade the position with his queen rather than, I mean, ideally black would put a bishop here and tie white down to that pawn, but that's a long way in the future. So 97, queen g4, queen c7. So if you take here, we're going to go rook g8, queen takes pawn. Lots and lots of theory on this stuff. It is supposed to be better for white, but gee, you have to know a lot. And well, Yi knows this backwards. You can't prepare in 2 hours before the game with the sort of general knowledge that Yi has of this line. So Jesse decides to go for bishop d3. Just trying to work out why pawn takes pawn isn't good. Oh, this is an old, right, this is an old Judith Polgar line. She answers pawn takes pawn with knight e2, and after queen takes pawn, throws something like bishop f4 in, and although she usually gets one of the 2 pawns back, and she won a number of smashing games in this line, and it was adopted by a number of others. So instead of that, Yi decides, okay, let's keep it closed. Bishop back. Throws queen a5 in at a time when there's no knight e2. And now rook g8. Now rook g8 may look completely stupid. Well, it does look completely stupid. But Black's idea is that he doesn't want his king on that side of the board where the queen is. He wants his king on the queen side. And he's quite prepared to play the sort of plan I mentioned before. Bishop here, bishop a4, knight here or here, and castles. Now, it's going to be tricky to castle queenside because if you could imagine Black's king over there, White would already play queen h5 attacking this pawn and this one. So you've got to be very careful that castling queenside doesn't just lose material. And it could be even worse because if White's played knight f3, there could be knight g5, winning a pawn quite convincingly. So it is not easy after rook g8 for Black's king to evacuate, which is a reason why I would have been reluctant to play it. I mean, I guess the knight is not stable on f5, but it still feels like a better square. So some more moves. So h4. And why not? Because one of the ideas h5 is no longer playable. Bishop d7. Knight here. Not h5, okay. Bishop a4. And he does play rook a2. You've got to be very careful when you do that because every so often there's a queen b6, queen b1, and you just lose everything. But right now, queen b6, we can castle, and you don't have entry squares in there. So the rook is extremely awkward, but you're saying, okay, I'm tying a rook up, defending this pawn, but I'm sort of cutting these guys out of the game. I'm happy to spend a rook to tie up a queen and a bishop. So I might take that off. So knight d7. So he really does want a castle. And he's not scared of queen h5. But I am. I'm also a little bit scared of knight g5. Though I suppose you can play h6. Knight e6 looks scary, but maybe not scary enough. So, but okay, you still can't castle because of knight g5 or is it not? Yeah, okay, so if we ever go f5, takes en passant, and that e6 pawn is very weak. So there won't be a breakout with f5. There might be if we throw queen b6 in and then play f5, but well, even then, there is a queen h5 check, so you may find yourself losing a pawn for nothing. So White is having a think here because he needs a decent move that keeps all those threats alive. Rook h3, I'd love to play, but this queen b5 or queen b6 and queen b1 starts getting really scary. So I think I probably want a castle. I don't especially want my king over here, but maybe my rook would be useful on b1. So anyway, Zafirakis is having a bit of a think. Both players have used a decent amount of time here, half an hour each, but Zafirakis is now 10 minutes further behind on the clock. Yeah, if Black could have done without Rook G8, I would be very happy with Black's position. Right now, I'm just not so sure. But maybe if we can afford H6 before we castle, we might be able to do the job. So if H5, H6, let's say Queen F4 tying you down, Rook F8 threatening to castle, Queen G4, Rook G8 would be some sort of weird draw. But hopefully nothing like that will happen. Okay, let's move on to the third board. Okay, so we have 14-year-old Daniel Wang, who I mentioned earlier, only got into the tournament the day before yesterday after his FIDE rating went up 80 points on January the 1st. And George C., who has been one of Australia's top players for 2 decades now and is starting to get back to some of his old form. Remembering that, of course, in 2010 and 2011, I'm not plugged in. What? This is not good. Hope everything doesn't crash. Could. No, it's not. Oh, it's restart. Still not. Jeepers.
That really is not.
Yeah. It's not good for him either. The whole thing will come. So this powerboard's broken, I guess.
Well, shouldn't have.
Well, let's see. Which one is it? That one.
Yeah. Still not working?
There's no power.
So this PowerPoint's not working. Okay. Have you got a radio to Winston? Or?
No.
How long have you got before?
I've got about a minute.
Oh, okay. Your whole friend away.
Yes, and that would be a bit sad. Hang on. I've got another plan. It's solved. Oh shit! I better leave that plugged in for a while. I know. I had the wrong cable into my computer. No, I can't do that. I can't do it.
Wasn't plugged in.
No, it has to be 10 minutes on this before. Otherwise, I'll shut down and everything will go to pot.
Here, let me do it.
No, I'll do it. Stop.
You've got it the wrong way around.
No, I haven't.
Just give it to me. Hang on.
Okay, hopefully that'll stay working, and that one hopefully has enough juice to keep going. So, okay, let's go back to the start. And the game starts as a Sicilian defence. Daniel Wang, 14 years old, is following his mum's favourite system. And George decides to do something a little unorthodox. Bishop c4. Now, when this is played by a weak player, it's very easy to explain that this is an extremely weak move because e6 and d5 will knock the bishop around, and the bishop's just badly placed on c4. The bishop's good if it's an e4, e5 game, but in almost any closed game, semi-open game, it's not a great idea. However, there is a German international master named Stefan Bucher who single-handedly revived bishop c4. He had a really good magazine on unusual openings, and he spent many, many pages on bishop c4 and managed to make it look like a decent line. Now, Daniel Wang, I'm sure, knows that e6 and d5 is the recommended plan, but if George has studied this well, then I suspect he'd be walking into some preparation. So instead of that, knight f6. So d3, not even queen e2, which is one of the ideas. But right now, queen e2, is there a bishop g4? I think there is. And so suddenly knight c6 gets a bit nastier. So he starts with d3 and knight c6. c3. All of a sudden, you can see that if white gets d4, you might actually have a good version of a c3 Sicilian. The bishop on c4 is not perfect. There will be a lot of positions where if you play d4, we might be able to take on e4 and play a d5 knight fork or something like that. That's even after you have to defend that first. But Daniel Wang decided, okay, well, this is not such a dangerous setup against a dragon, so I'll play pawn here. And is this where George starts thinking? No, he played castles very quickly. I would have thought knight g5 would get interesting. Black doesn't want to play e6 anymore. Now d5 is perhaps playable, and also knight e5, bishop b5 check, and then f4 later might be good. But okay, George just didn't want to get into any of this. And it's possible that if knight g5 isn't good, then you're just causing trouble for yourself. So once again, the top seeds are just playing natural moves, bishop g7, and now bishop b3. Okay, the idea of that is, of course, when you play d4, you'd rather not have the bishop on c4. Castles. And now h3. This is a slightly more useful h3 than in an earlier game when Trevor Tao played it. It does stop bishop g4 because when you play d4, bishop g4 could get really annoying, so cutting it out. And he's in no hurry to play d4 because black doesn't really want to play e5. For a start, and makes the bishop on b3 a little bit better, but more importantly, when white finally does play d4, you might finish up with a very weak d6 pawn. So unless you can play e5 and follow with d5, so instead b5. And that's a little bit of an unlucky choice because after b5, white has a tactic, which George C immediately exploits. So he played d4. And all of a sudden, if you grab this pawn, bishop d5, attacking both knights, neither of them are protected, and it's easy for, well, it's an easy win for white. So he gets d4 in without even needing to defend that pawn. Bishop here, and now e5. And again, maybe bishop b7 was a little bit slack because we can follow e5 with e6 in most circumstances. So takes, queen takes, rook takes, knight e8. Sorry, that's gone. And this looks horrible for black. The only thing white has to worry about is that pawn, perhaps. But already there's ideas of rook d7, and if bishop back rook c5, sorry, d5, threatening c5, could be good. And of course, we can just play e6 if we wish, which might be the simpler move. Instead, he does none of these and opens a new flank, a4. This makes black's life a bit more difficult. You would think he could just play pawn here, but now, for example, if I go rook here, bishop back, rook here, I'm threatening that, but I'm also threatening to take on b5, and that gets really unpleasant. So a4, a6 is in white's favour, which means black's going to have to do something that he really doesn't want to do, whether that is to take on a4 and allow, well, bishop takes or rook takes for that matter, or to push past and give a wonderful c4 square not only to the bishop, but potentially to a knight. And after b4, maybe bishop e3 is already winning a pawn. So it's not surprising that 14-year-old Daniel Wang is having a bit of a think here. The youngster from Sydney is in deep trouble. He's the first of the lower seeds to really be outclassed in this round. Remembering, of course, the first round is the top half against the bottom half. So seed number 1 against seed number 17, and so on down. The player who was not paired, by the way, today was Heather Richards, who is actually the 19th seed, but she was not feeling well. It's incredible she's playing in this tournament at all. She was one of many Australians who returned from the Chennai Chess Olympiad in 2022 with COVID. Most of them recovered fairly quickly, but both Heather and her husband really suffered extremely badly from long COVID. Her husband got better after a couple of years. Heather has never really recovered. And it was a real test for her to play the Dobell Cup. In the first 2 years, for example, her brain fog was sufficient that she asked me to send her up a set of chess puzzles. And when a month later I asked if she wanted some more, she said no, I couldn't solve any of them. And this is a player who'd played board 1 for Australia at 2 consecutive Olympiads and played 6 Olympiads in total. Very, very serious player, just could not play chess. And the fact that she's trying to come back is very impressive. Unfortunately, she obviously didn't, well, something happened yesterday or the day before that caused her to feel unwell. And so she asked for a bye in the first round, which she's got. Unfortunately, the organisers aren't very nice, so they gave her a 0-point bye. But this is the trend nowadays. The theory goes that because people getting a bye are usually, well, always the bottom player in the field, that they don't deserve a half point because their normal score would be a 0. And therefore, why not give the bye for a 0 point? But there are still tournaments that will give you a point for a bye, and there are other tournaments that will give you half a point, but this is one of the nasty ones. Okay, so that is board 3. We did see a very short draw, Terence Tang and Sukai G, so much so that the transmission system was not repaired by the time they'd finished. As some of you were hanging around for the first half hour, was on again, off again moves, so it was off again for them. Let's see. Daryl Johansson, the Grandmaster, up against young Queensland Ben Leong. Ben Leong, I believe the last time they met, hung on for a draw against Johansson, very much against the run of play, but it was an impressive defensive effort. Let's see how he's going this time. Right, this is board 5. Yep, no wonder the top seed is down here. A higher seed, I should say. So 50-year age difference between Johansson and his opponent. Not a world record or anything, but okay, after c6, Johansson decides he doesn't want a normal Slav defense. Plays knight here, d5, b3. Now, this is not played so much nowadays because if black is alert, black can get a very good position immediately. Certainly no problems just by playing e5. And somehow there is a threat of e4, but also black can prevent a d4 under good circumstances. Of course, if you take this, queen d4 wins material, and it does turn out the queen can't get trapped in there. It's close, but it can't. And so this is already fine. So I guess it's a form of bluff by Johansson. Yeah, he's playing one of these slow systems he knows about. His opponent thinks it's a slow system and doesn't look around for tactics very early. So after knight here, bishop here, white has what he wants, which is just a quiet English opening, not challenging the Slav very much. Now bishop f5, look, it's playable. It's a decent move, but you are biting on granite if white just plays d3 and sits tight. So white doesn't need to play e4. You'd like to really make the bishop look bad, but even after d3, things can get quite tricky. The bishop f5 is certainly a reasonable move. I mean, it's called the London system when white plays it, and it's super trendy. So it's not a disaster, but you'd rather play it after white had played d4. g3, I've got this move order wrong, by the way, sorry about that. e6, of course, bishop here, knight d7. So you can play e5 sometimes here with black, except that Ben, again, bishop d6 is more or less the main move to enable you to go queen e7, and when this knight develops to go bishop a3 and get rid of the dark squared bishops. Instead, he goes bishop e7. So he's just playing not bad moves, but slack moves. They're just not the most accurate if you want to equalize easily. Here, you're going to get into a middle game where you're probably a bit worse. So d3. Look, h6 is very common in these lines, and that's what Ben Leong played. But I've often believed that after white goes knight h4, if you're happy to let your bishop get knocked around, you're probably doing fine. And when it finally gets knocked back to g6, if it does, then white will have played h3 and g4. And, well, okay, right now there is a move knight g8. I don't think it's that great, but it's play. Oh, no, hang on. No, you can't because of bishop g7. So if you had a good discovery with that knight, for example, if you'd already castled and could play knight e8, this would definitely work okay. Even here, bishop here, knight takes, pawn takes. Again, I'd rather have my bishop on d6 to go to the king, but it's not so bad. Instead, he is scared of being chased by the knight, plays h6. Okay, reasonable move. Knight d2. White hasn't even started showing black what he wants to do. Castles. And now, is he going to go queen e1, rook e1, a3 first? I actually don't think that's particularly necessary because there was no bishop d6 and queen e7 plan. So a5, a reasonable move just to cover b4 from happening, although you could wait for it and then play a5. And now rook c1. Oh, I know what he's thinking about. I've watched too many Johansson games. At first sight, that rook is doing nothing there. Even if you swap, we'll probably take that back that way and the rook will be doing absolutely nothing. What Johansson wants to do here is rook c2 and queen a1 and control that long diagonal. I know that partly because against the London system, I have seen Johansson play rook a2 and queen a1 and somehow get his rook out from that square. So yeah, so that's why he goes rook c1, queen b8, and now all of a sudden e4. So is that tactically possible is of course the question. Because if it isn't, we're going to get e5 in. So what happens after knight takes pawn here? Oh, take, queen takes d7, game over. So queen b8 enabled this. And Johansson was very tactically alert and immediately saved himself a move like rook e1 by playing e4 immediately, because when the bishop goes back, did it go back all the way to h7? Yep. He hits with e5. Knight g4. I can understand why he doesn't want to go back to e8. It's got no prospects there. Even if it gets to c7, it doesn't have a lot of prospects. So he decides to play some risky stuff. Knight here, threatening that pawn. Queen here. Threatening h3, winning a whole piece. So he has to save it this way. And that's not as bad as it looks. Look, the h5 pawn could be a real problem, but the knight coming to f5 is not so bad. And more importantly, with the bishop on b2, it's not going to take that knight. I still think this is a horrible position for black. I hate the knight on h6 and the bishop on h7, but they are at least near your king. Now, the thing I want to do is attack this guy, because if I can get you to play g6, then the bishop on h7 is a big pawn. So, and if you play bishop g6, that bishop doesn't look very stable there. But I don't really have a good move for this knight at the moment. And if knight e4, my guess is that they'll chop that off immediately and get rid of one of the slightly bad pieces. So Johansson is having a big thing here. If you have a look at the clock times, it indicates that Johansson is an hour behind on the clock, but DGT boards are notoriously inaccurate. You will see the accurate time for Johansson only after he moves, and that will probably be that he has half an hour, 40 minutes left. I don't know why it jumps forward like that, but you will see later on in the games with the time scrambles, someone down to 0.00, and then you think, oh, they've lost on time, and then as soon as they move, it goes up to 9 minutes or something like that. So don't trust it. 114 is almost certainly accurate for Ben Leong, which indicates to me that the kid has been playing way too fast, because if you've only spent 15 minutes and you've got a horrible position, you should have spent 30 minutes. But nonetheless, Johansson wants to find something really accurate here. And look, it could be knight e4 is not a bad move anyway. But once you take back with your queen, your bishop on g2 is a long way from getting to somewhere like d3 to set up a mating attack. So if I could get the other knight to come to e4, I'd be doing well, but I don't like knight h2. It's just a stupid square. Maybe some move like rook fd1 could increase the pressure without actually needing to find a plan. So yeah, it's not an easy position for Johansson to choose, because I'm quite sure that he has an advantage here. I believe there is no live broadcast on the Lead Chess at the moment. I might check that actually, because it'd be interesting to see Australian Chess Championship 2026. Well, they claim to have it. They claim to have the reserves round 7, which is very impressive. Oh, they do have the games. Okay. So what I wanted to check was Johansson's game, which is somewhere. Okay, they've got Johansson at 117 and Ben Leong at 40 minutes. So this is super weird. But okay, I reckon they'll already say, oh, take, bishop g6, queen e2, rook d8, e5, knight h7. Maybe. But okay, let's update it with the real moves. And now if we turn the Lead Chess computer on, it doesn't think it's that great. It's quite amazing. Point 4. It also says after knight e4 you don't take, but he is going to take. Oh, he takes one move later anyway. So Wow, it's more solid for black than I thought. Quite remarkable. Okay, anyway, let's go back to live and move on. There was some... Okay, let's have a look at Ranch Chakrabarti because, yeah, he's up against someone that might be a little bit difficult for him to play because he grew up in Sydney with Aidan Odenthal being one of the best juniors, and psychologically sometimes people who've been better than you, it's very hard to suddenly realise that you're clearly better than them. And that happens a lot. All sorts of players have what the Germans call an Angstgegner, someone who they just can't play against. Sometimes your Angstgegner is stronger than you, but sometimes it's just someone who beat you up a lot when you were a kid. So, for example, for me, it was a Victorian player called David Hatchie who beat me the first 3 times he played me when I was about, 12, 13. And even when I was an international master and clearly stronger than him, I still had this hang up that he was going to come out with these really good moves that were going to beat me. And it was only after I played him, I guess I was already 25 or 24. I was close to being a grandmaster. And some of his moves just looked so weak to me that I thought maybe he isn't that great anymore. So I was able to justify my earlier poor results against him. I scrambled ahead of him 3.5, 2.5 in a match, which was intended to wipe the demons of the problems I've got with him, the nemesis, but it didn't work. And he beat me in a critical game in an Adelaide tournament when I was an international master. And he said he was very relieved to win a big prize in that tournament because he'd been booked by the police for speeding going into a small town and going out of that small town. And the fines, the 2 fines were exactly paid by the amount he won in the tournament. So he needed to beat me and managed it. Okay, so let's go back to the start, and it starts with B3. So we have the hypermodern ranch with Larsson's opening, D5. Generally wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but all of a sudden we just about have Johansson's game if black plays C6 and white plays C4. But no, bishop F5, knight H4. So, yeah, it's a move. Bishop back. The knight is very unstable on H4. Yeah, it's hard to know. I don't think I want to play bishop G4 and lure your pawns forward. But in a lot of these positions, the best move is just to pull your head in and go bishop C8 and know that the knight's going to have to return to F3 sooner or later. So here, I think bishop D7, it might get in the way, especially if you're planning to play C6. But maybe he isn't planning to play C6 anymore. And yeah, white succeeded here. The bishop is on D7. In most of these positions, it would want to be on B7. So the bishop is slightly misplaced. Chakrabarti's plan has succeeded. Look, we're talking about minuscule positional advantages. We're not saying this position is terrible for black or anything. It's just that white will be happier than usual in a position that is slightly better for him. And black is just playing sensibly, C5 and knight C6. Now, I guess if white wanted to be greedy, white perhaps should have thrown knight E5 in a little bit earlier just to perhaps pick up a pair of bishops. But okay, so knight here. The good news from white's point of view, black is not threatening D4, which is often a problem in these sort of lines. So, yeah, but would maybe knight C3, D4 might be playable though, because you can back it up with E5. So, okay, here I would probably play D3 and knight BD2 and sometime knight E5 and F4 perhaps, but it's not much. So instead, Ranch goes for D4. And yeah, it's not terrible, but the chances that everything gets swapped off in the center are reasonably high. So it's very committal. It's a slightly better version than normal, but again, because of that bishop on d7. But I really wonder if black should take on d4 now. It certainly looks possible. I'm not sure which way white would take back. Probably the pawn. And yeah, maybe that's okay. So Odenthal is just almost trying to exploit the fact his bishop's on d7, play natural moves that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't on d7. So it takes on d5. Yeah, knight takes. He doesn't really want an isolated d-pawn position because the bishop on d7 would probably have to go to e6 pretty quickly. It's not ideal at all. And now Chakrabarti has to have a think. Again, I don't believe he's down to his last 5 minutes. Lichess will probably give us something a bit more realistic. What are the clock's times like on this? No, not much more realistic. Okay, absolutely no way Chakrabarti is down to whether it's 9 minutes or 4. Yeah, he might have spent half an hour trying to work out what the best way to play was, but yeah, we'll see. I guess he would like to play e4 and d5 here, and that's probably what he's calculating. The problem with e4 is knight f4 is very annoying to that bishop on e2, and it could be that even then d5 is a decent move, but I wouldn't absolutely guarantee it. So if e4 is good, then Chakrabarti will play it, but it's a sort of move where the longer you analyse it, the more likely it is you'll find one good defence for your opponent and you'll try to be less forcing. Just a reminder, you're watching the very first round of the 2026 Australian Chess Championship. There are only a handful of players in the field that have won the tournament before, and they are all aged over 60 at the moment. And they are Gary Lane, who won in 2004, very impressive 9 out of 11. Daryl Johansson, who's won the record number of times, 6 times. And Stephen Solomon, who was the Nearly man for so many years. He tied for a number of championships and lost the playoff. And finally, in 2008, he didn't win the tournament, but he won the title because it was a foreign visitor who won the who scored the highest. Solomon came in second and was finally Australian champion. So a long, tough journey for the 10-time Olympian. And for example, other top Australian tournaments, Solomon had no trouble winning. He's got the record for the most number of Australian Masters titles. He's won 7 of them. So it was just the championship that he was always very unlucky in. And well, you could almost say it was Johansson's tournament. Johansson used to win it regularly, and Solomon was always just missing out. I think there was a playoff match he played against Johansson when they tied for first, and he got massacred 4-0. He was never in the playoff. So, okay, so that is one of our juniors. If you want to see an 11-year-old, I believe is, if I get this right, no, Havi Zhu, I think he might have just turned 13, in fact. So we're talking about a much older ball. Okay, something's happened in this game. Yeah, I think I've worked it out, actually. They've thrown the pieces up in the air, and that's where they've come down. With black playing chess 960 and having his queen stuck on a8 from the start. Something like that. It does seem to me to be good for white, by the way, because right now black is not developed. The knight on b8 doesn't have good squares, and I'm really worried that a5 and b4 could disappear very, very quickly before black actually manages to get the pieces out. So let's see what's gone wrong for Zhu. Zhu being the 12th seed and Leo Kalina seeded 29th. So right at the tail of the field, Leo Kalina, young Victorian, and Harvey Zhu from Sydney. Yeah, Leah Kalina is 16. Oh, only 16. So really good young player. So Harvey Zhu is the only top Australian player who likes his G6 modern defence, and somehow he always gets interesting positions. He's just come back from the Hong Kong Open, where he had a fantastic game against the Indian Grandmaster Gupta. It went completely wild, worth looking up. At some point, Zhu could have forced a perpetual check, but gambled and ultimately lost. But it was, yeah, definitely a great fight, even against high-class 2500 opposition. So here, he likes his a6 and he really wants white to play a4 to try to stop it, because that rules out a lot of the positions where white will castle on the queen side. And black is just not scared of it, he's encouraging it. So a5. The good news here from black's point of view is you can play e6 and get rid of that knight whenever you want. But this looks, yeah, this is very much preparation by Kalina. Look at that. He's got 132, which is more time than he started with. So he's been using his 30-second increments. And, okay, and Harvey, I would expect, yep, spent 15 minutes on this move, because it feels as if you've got a number of good options. Bishop b7 or e6, but yeah, e6, bishop g5. My goodness, what is going on here? Is this just winning for white? Is f6 a move? Or is it too dangerous? Queen d7, that is a material sacrifice. Bishop here. I don't believe you can afford knight c6. That pin looks devastating somehow. Maybe c4 or something like that. Knight here. And white still hasn't started thinking. And finally, okay, I don't believe he spent an hour on this move, but finally Leah Kalina is having a big think. And my guess is, if I go, let's see, how do I do this? I'll go here. I will find the game somewhere. There it is. And download the game. Put it in chess space. Open chess space. What's all this? It's some other Leah Kalina game. Not that one. No, that's not what I want to do. Okay, I've just got to open the file that I just downloaded. CB, why is it not there? Who knows? Hopefully, we have it. Okay. And because it's only a 15-minute delay and Leah Kalina's been thinking more than 15 minutes. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is have a look at E5. So who's been playing it? If it's Carlson, I'm getting worried. No games found. Oh no, they're starting to turn up. Jesse Zafarakis, a fellow Melbourne junior, has played this with white. Let's go back a little more. So A5 is the main line, but bishop B7 has a better score. I can understand that, because if knight takes B4, you take the pawn on E4. So that would have killed that system. E5 and bishop G5, and that, if I put my computer on it, I reckon it's going to say +2 already. Well, only +1. Less than +1, that is amazing. They don't like knight f6. They like, oh, yes, they do. They like knight h6 more. Okay, knight f6. And yeah, they say c3. I would have thought c4, but okay, same sort of idea. I like the way that the computer, when it is looking at c4, it says c3 is a better move, even though the main line in both variations is to take on c3, whether it's c4 or c3. So the computer gives a different evaluation for the same position, which is, well, indicative of the fact it hasn't enough thinking time, really. It'll stabilize its assessment later. So, yeah, looks like Harvey Zhu has been caught in a known line, although not known to him. And yeah, Leo Kalina has given himself a great chance of scoring one of the first round upsets. So let's go back to the games. And okay, so that's another of the juniors, or two juniors playing each other. There are a lot of young players here. Okay, how about the veteran Gary Lane up against a Sydney junior, John Rusakov. Rusakov is 15 years old. Gary Lane is 61. And so Rusakov plays a6, which is one of these lines where you hope for white to play d4, after which you take and knight takes and play e5. And that's supposed to be playable for black. But c4 and c3 are considered both very good moves. And e5, this is a Johansson specialty. Johansson took this to Europe in the 1980s and scored extremely well with it. Wins against top players like Murray Chandler, I recall. But after knight f5, he didn't play the old line, which was d5, which is super complicated. He used to play just d6, g6, bishop g7, knight e7, and play it as if it was a pelican opening where he had f5 ready to go. And it worked remarkably well for him. I'm sure there's some computer line that makes it less favourable, but okay, d5. Certainly, if I were white here, I'd be a little bit scared, because I'm sure the last time Gary Lane studied this, it was for one of his books, maybe 7 opening ideas in 7 days that he never really believed in. But okay, does he know what he's doing? Takes here. So now knight c3 does seem like a decent move. If you take on f5, you have to resign after queen a4 check, I think, because b5 is impossible and queen d7 is answered by bishop b5, winning at least the exchange. And king e7 is too horrible to contemplate. Probably the best move, but super horrible. So, yeah, I can imagine queen e4 is game over immediately, actually, followed by queen e5 check. So, okay, that is pretty bad. So Rusakov, though, is still in his preparation, doesn't need to take that pawn immediately. So he knows what he's doing. 4 minutes more than when he started. Rook e1, and finally he takes on d5. So if you take the e5 pawn here, what is going to happen? Good question. We'll all get back to these. So let's see. Rook takes e5. I feel as if it's going to be knight takes knight and bishop f6, but then I'm worried about, oh yeah, and if pawn takes d4, I take with the queen. That's possible. And otherwise, doesn't seem like it's decisive or anything. Rook e5, what am I missing? Knight b4 might be interesting, followed by bishop f6. How long did Gary Lane spend not taking that pawn? $12 minutes, so okay. My guess is, yeah, after rook takes pawn, it's going to be either knight c3 or knight b4 and bishop f6. You will be only one pawn down, and c3 is going to be very weak in the first line, so okay, but this doesn't look scary at all. Bishop e4, queen back, bishop e3, big deal. Now I just wonder if black can't ignore all this and just put some rooks in the center. I don't see any threat at all for white here. Bishop d4 we can take with the pawn and keep b7 protected. So I like rook a c8 or rook a d8. They both look very sensible. He played bishop f6, which is sort of protecting a pawn that didn't need it. And now g4. Okay, he hasn't spent an hour thinking about this move. But, okay, g4 looks dangerous. So my first question would be, why can't I just go h6? Because if you can't go h4 without me taking it, then I'm not scared of g4 at all. If I can play h6 and maybe even bishop g5 sometime, I reckon I'll have quite a nice position. I think I want to go rook a d8 as well, maybe b5 if I need it. There's no reason why this should be better for white. So h6 looks sensible. Is there some sort of g5 move followed by queen h5 followed by f6? Very hard to believe. Maybe g5 is the only reason I'd be worried about someone playing g4 and me playing h6. So what else have we got? Not much else really. I don't want to play queen e7 because I'm on the same line as that rook, and I don't want to play queen d8 because that's where my rook belongs. So I don't want to do anything artificial. I'm not saying g5 is killing me immediately, but it is scary. So I think Rusakov just has to play h6, and if there's some sort of danger there, well, he's got to deal with it. Maybe it's queen d2 and bishop h6. Bit hard to believe. So Gary Lane is made the first threatening gesture of this game, and yeah, Rusakov is finally using up some time, remembering that 2 moves ago he had more time left than when he started. So 15-year-old, I think he's 15. John Rusakov is definitely in the game, but a little bit nervous. Okay, let's go back to our top game, although not too much has happened since we left it. This is Zhang Jilin, woman grandmaster, against top seed Trevor Tao, and that's practically where we did leave it. Knight d7, did she really? No, I mean, they indicated she spent an hour on that move and she's still got an hour left. So, knight here. And I guess Trevor Tao has to find a plan now. And is that plan d5? Is there another plan after if you don't play d5? I think I would play d5 here and risk losing my d5 pawn to activate all my pieces. If you block with e5, which is definitely a possible plan, then I could go this way to try and get in on f5. I don't have to go via d4. So it's, yeah, well, I'm looking for alternatives. b4, big deal. Is c5 really a problem? I don't think so. Maybe gaining some space. Move this knight. What gains white by swapping those bishops? Very little. The other thing is, though, it could be that you're waiting for black to play e5 because d5 isn't playable because pawn takes pawn. And maybe you're waiting for e5 to then answer with d5. If I was Gary Lane here with white, I might play g4. Not so much that I want to mate you or anything like that, but I'm just thinking if d5 and e5 happens, or e5 and d5, then I might want extra coverage over this f5 square, maybe my knight will go there, and also I want to make f5 harder for you to play later. So we'll just see how that goes. But okay, that is really weird. We haven't had a move there for a long, long time. On board 2, okay, Kath? No, not still. Are you still there? Yeah. I reckon we might have had a breakdown. Yes. Well, at least top 3, top 4. Yep, okay, all boards. Because they have not been updated. Let's see if Lichess has updated them more, which is not totally impossible, but would be a bit sad if the transmission to the, I think it's a French website based in America, it was better than the local one. So, Johansson, what have we here? Oh, that's pretty bad. It's broken down. Yeah, that's a position from a while ago. That's a position from a while ago. Okay, most unfortunate. Luckily, we haven't looked at all the games yet. Okay, just a couple of reminders. We've got, this tournament is 11 rounds, which nowadays in Australia is considered a very long tournament. It used to be 15, then it got reduced to 13. Now it's 11, and they have played one Australian Open at 9 rounds, and in fact, one Australian Championship in 2022, the COVID Australian Championship that was played on the, well, it was actually the Gold Coast Open, and they gave the title to the winner. And that was only 9 rounds. First prize is 3,000, second is 2,000, third is 1,500. Here, prizes go all the way down to 8th. And also our previous winner of this event was, let's see, Teslin, was Rishi Sardana, who is an international master born in Canberra. His parents moved back to Delhi when he was very young, but around the time of COVID, well, in fact, during COVID, he got himself financial qualifications and then immediately got himself transferred from Delhi to Canberra again, where he could get a job and play chess in Australia. And since then, he's been part of one of our Olympic teams in 2024, and he's one Grandmaster norm away from becoming a Grandmaster. He's got his, I'm pretty sure he's got 2 norms, and his rating's been up near 2,500. He's had a number of hard luck stories. For example, there was a tournament where he had scored 5.5 out of 6. I believe it was in Sharjah, or one of the UAE big opens. Very, very strong tournament. In the 7th round, he was playing a top Grandmaster. He was defending Rook and Bishop against Rook, and he defended it extremely well, but at some point made a mistake and resigned at a moment when he was already about 10 moves past the 50 move rule. So for either any of the previous 10 moves, he could have claimed a draw by the 50 move rule, but he resigned instead. And he was just absolutely demoralised by that. He was still on track for a Grandmaster norm, but he lost his next 2 games. So that doesn't happen very often, and yeah, you feel much worse with something like that because it's totally your own fault. He was just concentrating on defending the ending and not on whether the 50 moves were coming up or not. Okay, let's have a look at Ryder Teslin, just coming off a big win in Brisbane in the Oceania Under-20 Championship, which has made him an international master elect. That is the next time, oh, what's going on here? The next time the FIDE Titles Commission gets together, they will award him this title. He's only seeded 11th in this tournament. And we have a Queen's Indian defence. But instead of playing the normal G3 and style systems, the old-fashioned stuff, he plays Bishop F4 and E3. And this was a system used very successfully. I'll just, they're asking me if they've updated. They have updated, thank you. Yep. Oh, where am I? Yeah, okay. So this was really invented, if you like, or turned into a serious system by the English Grandmaster Tony Miles, who used it in the 70s to beat players such as Boris Spassky, who just didn't adjust to the fact that white actually has an idea here. That idea is often not to go 95, which happens in a lot of these slow systems. And in fact, if black plays bishop b4 check here, white is quite happy to play knight fd2, which is a very weird move, but it means next move will be a3, and you can also play f3 and e4 later. So if you play knight c3, you get in a main line of the Nimzo-Indian, which is not very good for white because the bishop on f4 is slightly misplaced. But after knight fd2, Miles made it work. So this is being revived by the Melbourne 21-year-old Ryder Teslin. No, he's only 20, sorry. And yeah, he was Australian under-16 champion about 5 years ago. Anyway, Min Ren, by the way, is very little known because he doesn't play much outside Adelaide, but he's only 19. But this year he's had an astonishing run of winning tournaments, including the SA Championship, which qualified him to play in this tournament. He's seated quite low. His rating is still, Australian rating is 2066, which would not normally qualify him. But he has. So what else has he won? He won the Checkmate Open this year, which is their big weekender. Let's see, City of Adelaide, I think he won. So yeah, basically, if it's a lot of the prestigious events in Adelaide, suddenly Min Ren made this big step forward and won it. Okay, knight h5. And that knight will have to come back. And white is just saying, I'm slightly better here. And black must agree because black plays d5. And normally, if you've got a light squared bishop in this sort of position, you're going to play d6 and e5. But white is quite well set up against it. He doesn't have double pawns the way you often do in Nimzo-Indian lines. So black says, okay, I'm just playing a Queen's Gambit where I don't have to worry about a bishop on g5. And it's true, I've got my bishop on b7 a little bit hemmed in, but I'm not actually worried about it. I'll be able to play c5 any day. Okay, that is a bit annoying because the person who thinks they want to play c5 any day almost always wants to take back with the pawn and get mobile pawns. And here, black is going to have to take back with the knight, which is not as good. So black could just play rook a b8, but unfortunately in this position after rook a b8, there is knight b5. So he plays a6 first, and he's getting ready to make c5 as difficult as possible. Rook fe8. Doesn't look like a useful move at all, unless he's planning knight f8 or something like that. I would much rather protect my bishop somehow and get ready for c5, except perhaps if you play rook b8 here, there might be a queen a4 move, and yet bishop takes pawn is not really a threat because of rook a8. So I'm not too worried. Rook e8, knight e2, you've got to worry about your pawn, and a4. And again, black does not want to play c5 at a moment where black can't take back with the pawn because that would otherwise leave black with a very bad isolated pawn on d5. So knight e5 looks logical, but still there is no threat of playing c5. So I think Teslin has the upper hand here. a5 immediately, b5, knight g3. Now, there were some old Nigel Short games in this line where he managed to play c5 really quickly and break through with d4 before a blockade happened. I don't think it's going to happen here. Knight f6, has he given up on c5? It looks like it. Knight e5. Isn't that the one move that allows you to play c5? No, because f7 is hanging. Okay, the threat here is to take twice on e4 and then play queen takes f7. Check. So we have to do something about that, and either the queen shouldn't have left e7 or the rook shouldn't have left f8, because that is very annoying. And you really don't want to play knight takes g3. I mean, it's not a terrible move, but the white king is almost unmateable with that pawn structure, with that pawn on g3 in front of it. Yeah, there's no way black's going to double on the h file or even play h5, h4. There's almost no way you're going to play knight g4 followed by queen h6 and try and mate that way. So in this sort of position, everything's going to be concentrated on the other side, and one king is going to be just totally safe, which is what Testelum wants anyway. So knight e5 is an annoying move. It looks like it allows c5. The only other thing I can think of is whether you can play c5 and when they take on e4, throw c4 in, but I don't believe that. There's bishop h7 and other stuff. So Ryder Testelum is going quite well against the South Australian champion. As I mentioned before, ignore the times. Okay, now we can go back to the top board and see what's happening between top seed Trevor Tao and Zhang Jilin. And it looks to me as if he did play e5, but we have to go back a bit to see it. That's what he did. So d5. And Jilin decided she didn't want to try to win that pawn. It does open up for all white's pieces. So after takes, queen d8, because that's the only safe square. You can't play knight c5 because of b4. Then d6 is weak, as well as d5. So we could even play knight e4 if we wanted. Actually, that looks really okay. Knight c4 perhaps. And the other move I was looking at was knight d4. To give you that guy, but get ready to jump in here or here. So all of them look quite promising. So Zhang Jilin played e5. I just want to check how long she spent on that. I suspect not long, simply because she would have been expecting d5 and would have decided beforehand. 8 minutes, a bit much, but okay. So rook e3. Trevor Tao, sometimes it's very hard to understand what he's doing. And rook e3 is one of those moves. I still don't believe b4 and c5 is going to be a serious plan for white. So has he played rook e3 to vacate a square for his queen? Doesn't look sensible. Knight e1, knight d3, maybe, but I honestly think even if you get c5 in, it'll liquidate lots of stuff. Okay, a5 played. So she wants her knight sitting on c5, a reasonable ambition. Knight e1. Rook e8. So she's giving up on an f5 plan. I mean, black's active plan here is to get 2 pawns in the center by playing f5. So if she really thinks she can't do it, okay, but why that rook? I don't see a plan now. e4 is not really going to be possible. So knight d3. Okay, knight c5. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, it's a good move. And knight b1. So he wants to go to c3 and b5, and that's very sensible. Here, I don't really want to take this guy because I want white to do the taking first. But I'm guessing that there's no way that Trevor Tao is going to oblige. So what about starting with bishop a6 here, for example? Just to rule out knight c3 because we can take this guy. Sure, white can play b3, but I've covered b5 and I can get on with doing other things. Instead, it seems to me she took. So does she have some special queen takes b5 idea? Maybe. Or queen takes, oh yeah, I can't take on d5, yeah. So queen takes b5 could close down that queen side if she's lucky, but he'll probably take with the rook. He did. So rook a c8, slightly crude, wanting to play b5. It's surely just going to encourage knight c3, but he didn't do it. He went rook here. So the knight can go via a3, I guess. Queen d8. I still haven't seen a clear plan for black, but I'm guessing that Zhang Jilin is thinking to herself, well, white is not really serious over here. Nothing's happening. And he's not trying to play f4, which would be the move on that flank that would worry her. So she's not too worried about doing anything. She just wants to get her pieces to better squares. Now, maybe this knight might turn up there. Might get swapped off when it did, but that's certainly a plan. So, after rook a c8, queen d8, knight d2. So I think I want to go knight d7, knight c5 now, but she didn't. She played rook here. And finally, Tao indicated that he's sort of interested in attacking on the king side. I should mention, the books over there, they're all recent books that I wrote. If anyone wants to grab one, just talk to Kathy on this side. So, okay, knight f1, knight e3. If you can imagine a queen turning up on that side of the board, it could be nasty. So the knight on c3 also guards the c4 pawn, which could be useful, and the d5 one, making b5 a little bit harder to play. So what happened next? Bishop c8, knight e3. Well, f5 is covered, and b5 doesn't need to be covered anymore. Knight h7. May I say yuck? What on earth is the knight doing there? f8 is not a good square unless you're going to d7 and c5, and in which case you should have done it before. Knight g5 looks like it just allows h4 and knight has to go away again. So even though I'm not that keen on where white's decided to put his rooks, I definitely don't want to move my knight from a good square to a bad one. So f5, is she really going to play f5? Maybe. Too easy to stop. I mean, for a start, there's queen d3 or queen c2. Okay, I can't stop with the bishop because of that. And I really don't want to stop with g4, even though I will get good control over the light squares. I'm just very nervous that g4 would justify that knight move, knight here, and then jumping in on f4 or h4. So, yeah, I'm not actually that worried about f5, but it is something for black to do now. So queen d3 played. And this is where Zhang Jilin has to decide, was I really serious about going f5? I don't want to play g6. It just feels very loose. Also takes away that square from the black knight, so maybe g4 suddenly becomes reasonable. But bishop e4, okay, is not threatened because of knight here, so that's okay. So Jilin's first plan hasn't worked so well, but I wouldn't say white has anything much in the way of threats. I wouldn't mind playing rook f8 here, just to let her worry about f5. Because I don't think I want to play e4 in most positions. Just doesn't, gives away some squares. Maybe the white knight will turn up on d4 if I'm not careful. So I don't think black's going to win with an attack, but it would be nice to get f5 and control some of white's pieces. Yeah, I don't see any real worries for black. Traditionally, Trevor Tao is a really hard player to understand sometimes, and yeah, he's got pieces on weird squares, and yet you're still not doing anything against it. So you get quite frustrated. You think, well, he hasn't been playing well. Why aren't I better? But there's no way black is better here. But I'm sure it's roughly equal. But there's a tendency to lash out and do something stupid. Whereas maybe the best move for black here is knight f6 going back again. Wouldn't be totally surprised because white's not doing anything. Why should black do anything? Okay, so that's board one. Board two was the really complicated French defense that we left with white having put his rook on a2 and hoping for the best. So castles by white, not rook h3 or anything. Remembering rook h3 got hit by queen b5 coming in on b1. And now h6. Finally, they're the wrong way around as well, aren't they? Yep, absolutely the wrong way around. Sorry, this happened a lot. So the young Melbourne player, Jesse Zafarakis, is in fact white. Sorry about the terrible pen. Can't even read that well. But okay. Yep, it's just about dead. Probably why the lecturers left it in the room rather than taking it home. Okay, so h6. Finally, we're able to castle queenside without losing to knight g5 or queen h5, attacking both the h-pawns and the f-pawns. So that's something he's got to deal with. So he went queen f4. I absolutely don't believe that if rook f8 he was going to make a repetition, but knight g6. Knocking the queen away from that pawn, and then castles. Just in time, and we don't care if you play h5, we'll go back to e7 again. So rook b1 played. Without the white a-pawn moving, it is often very, very difficult for white to generate any sort of attack on the queen side. And here it doesn't look like it's going to be. So a problem. So if rook here, you could probably just go b6. The black queen is out of play, it's true, but there's not that much trouble on the other flank at the moment. And meanwhile, those two rooks, that one in particular, is tied down to that pawn, and there could be problems on the a3 pawn. Now, why I mentioned you want to push the a pawn to make the attack better, it's not just to use the pawn in the attack, but this bishop can come here, here, and sit on d6, and then be very influential in the attack. In a way, white would prefer this position without the a pawn. Not only would the bishop here be pinned, and you might have to go b5, but at some point, if the queen had dropped back here, we could have gone bishop here, and being a pawn down would not be a problem at all. So, okay, a few more things have happened. Bishop c6. Sorry, he went, no, it's white's move, isn't it? Or am I missing something? Rook b1, no, rook df8. So he's thinking about f6 or f5. It's not happening for a while. That knight is under attack. Went here. Bishop went back, not b6, a little bit surprising. And rook went back here, which I think is a good move. Threatening a4. Knight e7. And now he did not play a4, which feels like a missed opportunity. You can probably win it with the knight as well, but we'll put a rook on b4. You'll be pinned. You might back it up with b5, but a lot of the pressure on the white position will be gone. I mean, they often say that with rooks, you want fewer pawns, not more, because using a rook to defend a pawn is so passive, you'd rather have a free rook and not have to worry about pawns. So being 2 pawns down in a rook ending frees you up for attacking all their pawns and causing them worries, rather than you fretting about whether it's worth going passive or not. The real problem here, I think, is that black wants to play f5, perhaps f5, and I think we don't have to take back with the rook, actually. There is also knight takes, queen takes, bishop here. Are we getting trapped or not? Probably not getting trapped. So yeah, we can take back with the rook, and that looks quite promising as well, with rook g6 knocking the queen again. It's quite possible that the queen can get knocked to h3 and be totally out of the game, just like the black queen. That does happen sometimes in these lines. In fact, there was a famous Australian Championship game from 2012 when Zhao Zhongwan was the unbackable favourite, and he played white against Daryl Johansen, and Johansen played a French defence, and white got his queen stuck there and never got out. It was really quite astonishing how easily he was outplayed in a position that he wasn't used to. And of course, Johansen went on to win his 6th Australian title, the record 6th. And Zhao Zhongwan, I believe, has yet to win an Australian Championship title. He has won a Australian Open title, but I don't think he's won an Australian Championship. Okay, so that was board 2. Board 3, 14-year-old Daniel Wang. It looked terrible before. It still looks terrible, but maybe less. Or is he losing a knight? I don't know. He's losing 2 pieces for a rook for a start. Okay, let's see how it happened. We left it quite a way back after a4. And that was really disrupting black's position. It's an endgame already, but rook d7 is very, very annoying. So Wang decided, okay, knight here. Bishop went back. Is he going to take on f3? I doubt it. And bishop c2, sorry. So I don't think, well, the threat is takes. We can also take back with the bishop if you take. There we can take with the rook now too. But I'm thinking also there will be a c4 square available for the white knight. b4 played, and now you would think knight bd2 would be pretty good, but he developed first, attacked that pawn, and now knight d2. Yep. So bishop takes, really? I guess the question here for black is, what is my next move? Knight c7 would lose that guy. Knight c6 would lose that guy. And maybe e7. So are you really going to go f6 or f5? Doesn't feel great at all. So it's more running out of ideas and wanting to put the knight back on b7, I think, which isn't a great square, that caused Daniel Wang to take here. Yeah, this is, okay, I often recommend against starting a swap, and this one has improved the d2 knight and the rook on d1. Okay, he wants knight c4. That's something. Because if bishop c1 protecting that guy, then knight takes pawn. So he's actually trying to win a pawn, which is a reasonable ambition. So bishop g5. If you take here, we're going to swap and take there, and we will win the exchange. Now, maybe that's worth going for. Take here at the end. Might actually be a decent plan. Black simply played rook here to keep everything going. And now, is Daniel Wang winning a pawn against the 3rd seed? It does look like it. So bishop here, knight takes. Is that a free pawn? Not sure. Rook d8 looks scary. And that is what, oh, what have I done? It was played. So I sort of trust this a bit. I'm a little bit scared of e6 and takes f7 because I will have to take with the king. And then knight g5 and knight e6 could be very scary. On the other hand, I'm a clear pawn up and I could take a second here. So what did he decide to do? He was scared of e6. Okay, if you're scared of e6, why not move your rook away from c7? Mainly because you don't have a good square, really. But e6 feels like you've got a lot of holes and f6 becomes even less attractive to break out. Now, a5, wow. Ah, okay. If the knight moves, bishop a4 will actually win, just about win a piece. I mean, you have got rook e7, but you'll be so tied up, it'll be horrible. So bc3, rook a3. So if I can't play f6 around here, I regard my position as extremely difficult despite the two extra pawns. But maybe, I mean, I can go knight c4 and try and take that a pawn if I want. But unfortunately, knight c4 no longer threatens the e5 pawn. So is there any trick here? Because it feels like black's done nothing wrong, but he did have a passive position from the start. So I'm hoping tactics will enable him to stay out of trouble. Yeah, knight c4, rook takes, knight takes, bishop a4 looks really, really nasty, actually. So I don't think that's possible either. But the move played rook e7. Oh, yuck. He wants to play f6, I suppose. I can go bishop e3 if I really want to. Might send you back there. If knight c4, bishop c5, knight takes, bishop takes. Maybe black is surviving that. Okay, so bishop e3 isn't that great. So he simply took here. Knight c7. A decent plan. He's up a pawn at the moment. Why not give it back to untangle a bit, if you can? If that knight gets to d5, maybe black will be okay. So white has to find something. Generally, I'd say swapping gains the tempo and gives us the time to have a go. And that's what happened. Okay, so takes. I think he took with the king, didn't he? No, he took with the bishop. Takes, bishop c1, knight d5. Okay, I would say bishop takes on b2 is a slow but sure win. Knight takes, bishop takes, and you've got two pieces for a rook and pawn, which is already a significant material advantage, probably upwards of half a pawn material advantage. And that rook has no entry squares on either of the main files. So we've totally blockaded that. We have all the time in the world to bring the king over. to reposition the knight to e4 or d6 or f6, and I think the two pieces will absolutely dominate against the rook. But I don't think it was particularly laziness. I think George C just thought this was better, because we do have a rook c8 idea sometimes to get you in another pin, but also this knight doesn't have the easiest path out of being trapped. So rook d, what? Rook d7. Oh, threatening the rook. Okay. Doesn't look like the most useful square of all time. But okay, at the moment we're not getting out, are we? Okay, so rook d7, rook here, and now the threat is bishop to h6 and mate. Plus threatening the knight. Yeah, I can understand why George C chose this. Knight e7. Big deal, we just move our rook, don't we? And then bishop h6. What about rook a8 or something like that? He hasn't played it yet, but as long as we keep that pin, is there any trick like knight here? Still bishop h6. So we could even go rook e8 if we wanted. So what is the problem? If rook c7, by the way, will go bishop h6 every time and mate you. So rook e8 looks like game over. There's just no tricks by pinning the two bishops or anything like that. King g7 certainly doesn't help. So I think George C is a move or two away from beating Daniel Wang. So the third seed is probably going to be our first winner, up against the 14-year-old from Sydney who only got in at the last minute. So obviously his preparation is not that great for this event. That would be the second result, remembering we had a very quick draw on board 4 between Terence Tang, who's a Sydney uni student, up against Sukai Ji, former Singaporean, now Australian FIDE master, and actually seeded 4th after a pretty good 2025. Okay, let us try Parman Kargosha against Bayaskal and Kishibata. And all right, one is Mongolian, the other one was playing for Iran until relatively recently, and just a very solid player. He's also one of the veterans in the tournament, I think. His rating has certainly dropped a bit. Where is he? He's can't see. Is he? Okay. Yeah, I just, oh, there he is. Okay, yeah. 2035 Australian, but, oh no, sorry, that's the wrong guy. Oh no, 2169 Australian rating. That's not too bad. And easily qualifies for the tournament. His FIDE rating's a bit lower, but he is 47 years old, so it definitely puts him as past his prime player. He competed a lot in weekend tournaments in Sydney about 10 years ago. Okay, and he's just an experienced campaigner, so it won't be so easy for the 19-year-old who's 10th seed to beat him, especially when he's got white. And 92, one of the really safest ways of playing. C5, A3, we're planning to take back with the knight. And by the way, after bishop takes, knight takes, bishop b7, the main move for white is to just go bishop d3 and give away the g2 pawn. So white aims to develop the way they would like to rather than the worry about their opponent's threats. Yeah, so rook b1. There's knight c6 here is not very good because of d5, but knight a6. Black is absolutely determined not to take on c3 until it gives double pawns, and he's basically waiting for white to move the knight to f4 or g3, the knight on e2, which is clogging everything up. And after knight g3, He thinks, well, why should I bother taking? The knight's not going anywhere. They haven't castled. So bishop here. Yeah, didn't dare play bishop. With the knights on g3, bishop d3 is not as clear because after bishop g2, rook g1, the pawn on g7 is not threatened. So he plays f3, bishop e2. And now white's pieces are a little bit funny, but once white castles and plays d5, white will have, and backs it up with e4, white will have a very, very nice position, which is why she decides to react in the center, even though it makes the bishop on b7 not look too good. And it also activates the bishop on e2 when white plays c takes d5. So castles anyway, rook c8, knight here, rook a8. That was not a great plan by black, but can we exploit it? And probably the answer is no. So right now there is no b4 move. I don't think. That looks like it doesn't win anything. So b3. Is she, I don't know, is she planning to take back on c4 if black takes with a pawn? It's possible. But really she just wants to leave that bishop on a5 hanging a bit. Now the knight on b5 has no retreat anymore. So if black moves the knight away from a6, suddenly a6 is threatened, winning a piece. So b3 is a funny sort of a move. Queen here. I like the way black actually doesn't worry. She's not trying to do anything artificial to win that knight. She just wants to put her pieces on the best possible squares. And now, yeah, queen c2, bishop here, which is an easy move to overlook. And now the bishop on a5 is not cut out of the game anymore. It's not that this pawn structure for white is so bad, but I'm a little bit nervous about the g3 pawn. Whether white, yeah, at some point white will have to defend it, maybe knight h5, or if we can kick that knight away from b5, there'll be a queen c7. So either of them could be useful. Knight here first. There is a queen g5 as well. That's what she played. And now she doesn't want to play g4. Sorry, he doesn't want to play g4 because of queen h4 check. So instead, white has a pair of bishops. That's about the only thing white has going for him in this ending, maybe a little bit of space. But in terms of a practical decision, I think Kargosha made a good one by swapping. Because now black's extra pawn is a double pawn. So neither player has an H pawn, but creating a passed pawn from those double G pawns is actually quite a job. So all white has to do now, and it's not so easy, is to start playing well. And knowing that he shouldn't be losing this endgame even though he's a pawn down. So king f2 makes a lot of sense. Knight f6. Bishop here, just developing. Great stuff. King f8, really? Okay. Check. You'd think king e7 was a move. All of a sudden, king e7 was not a move, perhaps. Oh, yeah. What's wrong with king e7? There's no tricks on the dark squares that I can see. So that is weird. Going backwards a bit, f6. So it's black's king that's going to sit on f7, but I am nervous that there are things like a4 and bishop a3 here. I mean, normally on a4 you'd play knight b4 and answer bishop a3 with a5. Here it doesn't work because we have knight c7 and the e6 pawn is hanging. So white has one move to get things right tactically. And I'm sure that should be a4 and then bishop a3, because then there's a d6 square which could interrupt the black king trying to get out on f7. So I would say a4 has very good chances of being clearly better for white. which is pretty impressive, really, given the position there was before. I can check that out, actually. Let's go to Biascalan. Where is she? Did I miss something? Probably. No. Lots of long-named players, but not Biascalan. There she is. Okay. So, just going back to F6, if I put this up, A4 is +4. In other words, A4 is completely winning for white here. Clearly F6 was just careless, but knight G8 I think was also stupid. They think white is a bit better. King E7, take. Oh, and the A7 pawn is hanging. Okay. But this is getting worse and worse. And after F6, that is a massive advantage. So again, this is a tactical opportunity. If you give black time to go King F7 and move the knight away to H6 or to E7, it's quite possible black will be completely okay, remembering that black is a pawn up. So when you're white and you're a pawn down and you just have the initiative, you absolutely have to use it and make every move count. So rook C1, I guess there's some plan of going knight C7 here. Bishop C6, king up. And again, we do not have time to get our knight to D6. If C5, I'll just take it, I guess. And you're not getting there. So King E3, and Kargosha has really blown what was a very good opportunity. Now, can he go knight E7? Can she go knight E7 here? Or no, knight D6 doesn't do anything. So perhaps G5. I don't see what you're threatening, so I don't know why. Rook up. Rook D7. C5. Okay, finally played it. So he really, really does want to get a knight on D6. And notice that you can't play bishop takes knight on B5 because bishop takes attacks two different pieces. However, I could play knight takes C5 and then rook takes D3 and bishop B5 check, but I'm not sure how good that is. So what if I play pawn takes first? What is white doing there? If you take with the pawn, I play rook takes bishop check. So why can't I play pawn takes pawn? She did play pawn takes pawn. And maybe here Kargosha realized that something had gone wrong in his calculations. Because now he is 2 pawns down and there are threats. Oh, what? He's going to resign after rook takes, I think. You can just tell there are tactics galore here because the white king is guarding D3 and F3. Yeah, she's played it. He hasn't resigned, but it looks pretty terrible. And after king back to E3, if we want, we can go bishop C6, make sure the C pawn doesn't go anywhere before we go knight C7 and knight D5. Yeah, I really reckon Kargosha is going to resign this. So our 10th seed from Mongolia, although been playing actively in Sydney for a couple of years and very, very successfully, is going to win her first game. And she's only 19. Yeah, bishop C6. So just playing safely, sensibly. There's no hope here at all. Your bishop on B2 is not even a good piece. So, yeah. No, she's... yeah, so what did she win this year? Gosford. What else? New South Wales October weekend and New South Wales August weekend. Yeah, that's right. She won the October one ahead of the top seed, Igor Brelleberg, with a 7 out of 7 score. And yeah, last year, New South Wales Championship and New South Wales Open. I actually think she's been in Australia long enough that she may well be eligible for the national title. She's not by no means favourite, But if you've been resident long enough, it's not a matter of having a passport or having citizenship, because there are, well, traditionally there's been lots and lots of British migrants that just haven't bothered and stayed in Australia 40, 50 years without ever changing passport or citizenship. And so the rules were probably developed in an era when that was pretty normal. It's not so normal anymore. Most people go for citizenship when they can get it. But yeah, in any case, what has been interesting though is she has refused to change her chess nationality to Australia from Mongolia. And I can see why, because if you're a top Mongolian woman player, when you go to the Olympiad, you get all expenses paid and a fee and so on. And if you're an Australian one, you're severely out of pocket by representing the country. So it's not a stupid decision at all. And I think she definitely would qualify for the Mongolian women's team on her form at the moment. Although Mongolia have traditionally had some very, very strong female players. The problem for Mongolia is that they've often defected to the US or various other countries where they play Olympiads for those countries. So, yeah, so who knows what will happen, but we'll try and get Bias Garland in here to have a chat with us at some point later in the tournament. Okay, so back to, let's say, Ranch Chakrabarti and Aidan Odenthal, and that is weird. Okay, there is the world's most stupid knight on A5, but apart from that, everything else about White's position is okay. And not only that, we may be able to play A3 and force you back to C6 where we can swap it off. So where did we leave it? Here, I think, no, a little bit earlier. So in fact, that bishop on D7 that Chakrabarti forced has not turned out badly at all, because the black bishop on D7 is a bit hemmed in but can go wherever it likes. So here, Chakrabarti makes a conscious decision. He doesn't want to play A4 to slow B5 down, because that would probably create more problems later if black ever got control of the A5 square for the knight. So for example, if you play A4, maybe black will play bishop B4 and then knight A5. So he doesn't want to create any weaknesses. He'd rather let black push pawns, and he's making sure he doesn't give up his bishops. Yeah, so he's hoping for A3 sooner or later. So is there a threat here, like a bishop H7? Not really. Whoa. That does seem a bit unnecessary, but it looks as if queen H5 or queen G4 was coming soon. Here, oh, takes, right? That's how the knight got to the stupid square. This is well calculated by Odenthal. Queen here, big deal. Oh yeah, you can't go rook D6 because of queen takes knight on B4 and E4. Well, this is really messy. E4 is a great move, I reckon. You're trying to get your bishop out of B1, but you've also got ideas on the dark squares, like taking on F5 and playing queen F4, because then the rook on C7 will be hanging and the pawn on F5 might be hanging. So you need to get that bishop out, otherwise you're not doing so well. The alternative will be to play A3, B4 and bishop A2, which might work. The problem here, oh, what happened there? I lost it. Oh. Sorry, I'll have to reclip this. If I can. Nope. Really doesn't want to. Let's try that. Okay. Here, black is going to answer A3 with knight C2. So takes was played. Now, White would like to play rook e1 here, just to knock the queen away. It has to protect the knight on b4, but unfortunately queen takes rook followed by rook c1 could be very nasty. So White doesn't want to allow that. So a3 now. So we certainly have knight c2 or we have knight c6. I think I want to play knight c2. But then rook a2, and is our knight in a mess or is it wonderfully placed? Knight a3 looks really dodgy, but maybe we can get away with it. So knight a2 is critical. If Odenthal has calculated this correctly, he can go knight a2, knight c2, rook a2, knight takes a3, and steal a pawn. It really, because you're threatening the bishop on b1 as well. But can you really, really do that? All I can say is maybe. So if f5 was well calculated, then this is quite impressive play by Odenthal, because he needed to break out and he calculated that he could survive the white knight reaching d6, and survive he did. Yeah, but there's a lot of holes in black's position here. Black has to keep the initiative because there's a queen d5 check in some lines. So nothing is really easy. Dear. I wish I knew how this was supposed to hang on. Let's try one more time. Nope. Gonna need the technical guy again, I reckon. Yeah. What's that? The other one, yeah. Okay, so I can't do much about that. So I won't be using the demo boards for a little while. Okay, so really interesting game. We have a result. George C has beaten Daniel Wang, and we left it after 90, rook c8, 97, rook b8. Okay, that threatens the knight as well. So bishop h6 and taking the knight is completely winning, and that was a pretty harsh lesson for the 14-year-old from Sydney, son of Zheng Jilin. Only got into the tournament at the last minute. Sometimes last-minute entries can do exceptionally well, but in this case, against the third seed, never had a chance. So yeah, got a pretty bad opening with, b5 was just, if I go back, b5 was poorly timed. He's got a perfectly satisfactory position here. But as soon as he plays b5, he's destabilized his own knight on c6. And after d4, White got that pawn center he couldn't get before. But now if knight takes pawn, there's bishop d5 winning a piece. So the rest was just George's pawns charging down the board. And he backed it up with a really good move in the ending. When it looked like he had to defend his e5 pawn, he threw a4 in, and it worked exceptionally well. And maybe 95 is necessary, but it's horrible. So he got a bigger and bigger advantage and went on to win the game. Okay, back to the top board. We have had a result in our French defence as well. So let us see. It didn't last that long once he got his f6 going. So let's move up. We left it after queen d8. Yep. Thank you. We left it after queen, where was it? Queen d8. Oh, had it not happened yet? It hadn't happened yet. Rook back to a2. Black played 97. Queen h3. Well, I was warning about how unfortunate a queen could be there. Queen d8. a4. Now, was this the game where a4 was completely winning. No, that was, yeah. No, it wasn't this particular game. Zafirakis is getting started, but there are no weaknesses here. If you get to A6, we can go to B6. You just don't have help. The only thing you're going to get to is bishop C1, bishop A3. If you can get that, you might be all right. So let's see. A5 played. Really? He doesn't care about a bishop getting to D6. Amazing. Okay. Bishop C1. Knight B6. My goodness, is he really trying to win the A pawn? Queen D7. Bishop here, exactly. So if knight takes pawn, we're taking that guy. That is so weird. King D8. If this works, that would be unbelievable. He really is going to steal that A4 pawn. And he's going to steal it with the knight because the C3 pawn is really hard to defend. And now you are threatening to take it because if bishop takes knight, we just take that with the king. And the king turns out to be safe. That's a fantastic idea. So, H5. Knight takes pawn. Yuck. Knight H2. Okay, that is clever. The queen covers the weak point. If we're lucky, we get to move our bishop and maybe create some chances. B5. If white's pieces weren't so stupid, then white would play bishop d6 and rook takes knight and switch to the b file and have a serious attack. But if your queen is sitting on h3, your chances of getting that are pretty remote. So it's only a pawn at the moment, but there is potential. So g4 played. Oh, come on. Your worries are on the queen side. f6, of course. If you're going to play g4, we're going to open up the g file against your king. Takes. Takes. f5's coming, maybe e5 sometimes. Knight f3. And that is an awful blunder. And that is falling for free. Not only is it falling, we can go knight here. So the only thing I can think of is bishop takes, king takes, rook takes, knight check, king here. But you don't even have rook a7 winning because we can drop back with bishop b7. So it really is game over. And in fact, Zafirakis resigned. So his December form continues to some extent. And Yi Lu, who will be an international master, I think, if he can score well enough in this tournament and play enough of the international masters, although that doesn't seem to be a real worry. So three out of our top four boards have finished. And let's see how Zhang Jilin, holding up the honour of the underdogs, is going. And okay, if we compare this to our demo board, black has done absolutely nothing except swap off the white squared bishops, which were white's bad bishop, and just sit there waiting for white to move up. No attempt to play b5. The rook on d8 looks like a pretty sad square, whereas here you'd think a rook on c8 or a rook on e8 would be better. So it feels as if over the last 10 moves that Zhang Jilin's been completely outplayed. So let's see. Knight f8. Queen c2. There's still no f5 coming. He's not really going to go a3, a3, b3 and all that sort of stuff. But it does make b5 less attractive. But that maneuver from a good square on f6 to a terrible square on g6 is just weird, and really knight d7 to c5 has to be played sometime. But I don't think it was. What did she play? bishop d7 makes sense. And given that black's doing nothing, white's doing the same. Queen g5. Well, if white hadn't had the idea of playing h4 and bishop h3 before, he certainly does now. King here. Not knight g6. Yeah, knight g6. Okay. I guess my question is, what about f5? If black's going to put all her pieces on that side of the board, she's going to need some help. Why not play that? And it's got to be some sort of tactic, I reckon. But I can't see it. So that is so weird. Queen c2, bishop d7, king. Oh, sorry, it was king h2 first, queen g5, rook f1. My apologies, it's white's move. So, that's back here. So now, if f5, we will have f4. That makes sense. So knight g6, bishop e4. So again, is there f5? Why wouldn't there be? Because the queen is not on. My apologies, the queen stayed on this square to make f5 as hard as possible. Okay, makes more sense. Queen here. Bishop here, no tricks. Rook ed8. I'm beginning to understand how those pieces got to such funny squares. Queen e4. Takes. Sorry, bishop takes, knight takes. Queen g5. Go away. Queen went back. Rook f3, knight e7. So, if I still had a white squared bishop, I think I would play knight d4 here. And dump it on c6. But maybe that pawn would be a bit weak if you don't have a bishop backing it up. So maybe we want to head to b5, where we can tie some rooks up. And also, from b5, sometimes we can go to c6 anyway if the black knight does other stuff. So knight d4 makes sense. I think queen g6 is maybe what he's worried about. But after queen takes, you can't take with the knight, because the knight to c6. And actually, if you take with a pawn, maybe knight e6 is good too. Now, maybe black will get b5, so maybe knight b5 is a better move. But even so, perhaps black can play knight f5 and try and get to d4. It feels maybe black is surviving that. I don't know. It might explain why they're... Oh, he did do knight d4, yeah. Okay, so queen g6, take, and knight, he did go to b5. Okay, so knight d4, queen here, takes. And of course, you don't want to take with the f-pawn because your pawns are a little bit ruined. Knight b5. So black is definitely tied up on that side of the board, but we can play knight f5. And with knight f5, that protects the d6 pawn, and at some point, maybe there'll be a knight d4. It's quite possible, though, after b3 and a4, that we just can't change that pawn structure anymore. I don't know, maybe white wants to go a3 and b4, but I'm not sure that's so good. But having that rook on d8 tied up forever is great. It's possible we should be playing rook d7 and this rook over here to get rid of a pair of rooks. Wow. It's by the door, you never know, we might be lucky. The lights. Yeah, you might, but well, who knows? I think so, yeah. Yep, perfect, thank you. Okay, that'll do.
Okay, but you've got that one.
Yeah, It still is fairly clear here. It's not a problem. No, it's all right. So slightly better for Trevor Tao. I suspect it would be close to drawn if the black king got around here so that the rooks weren't tied up. I also don't know whether black should play knight f5 and then follow it with h5 or even start with h5. It might be decent. By the way, there is a second square for the white knight. It's not just b5 that's good, it's also e4. And therefore, if you do play h5 to back up your knight, the knight on e4 will be even more effective because it covers g5 as well. So the top seed is better, but how much better is hard to say. Let's see if we've got some accurate times. What are they saying? 1 minute for Zhang Xilin? Don't really believe it. Don't believe it at all. What's that, sorry? Have they played 40 moves? Not even. Oh, they have. Oh, so she'll get an extra half hour. Fair enough too. Okay, the exciting game we left a while ago was the one between Leo Kalina and Harvey Zhu, and it seems to have quietened down a little bit. This was very fine preparation by the young Victorian, 16-year-old Victorian against the 13-year-old from Sydney. Takes, and this is where we left it after knight f6. And here, Kalina had a long think. How long? 20 minutes before he decided to take on f6. And I think some move like c4 to get the pawns rolling would probably be the best, or castle first. So he took, and went c4, which is reasonable. Take. Now, white cannot be allowed to play c4. If white plays c4, those pawns will roll down the board and you die. So queen d5 tries to stop them. Here, he doesn't care about the a5 pawn. If rook takes, he'll just castle and try to get his pieces out. So white castles first. Bishop here. I'm scared because if rook a7, which is what happened, the threat is c4. You're tied to your bishop. So he took that guy, and now he just plays an ending where c4 hasn't happened yet, but it might happen soon. So he's doing his absolute best to control the c4 square. The problem being, of course, white can play knight d2 at any time. And rook d8. So this is a genuine fight back by black. Once you've won that pawn, things could get interesting. Don't know why you would bother playing that. Very complicated endgame. So what is the idea here? If we go knight e4, for example, do you have to give up the exchange to save your c6 knight? What is this rook d7? Why not get the knight to safety? Because knight e5, knight c8. He has tangled his rooks up something horrible. So here he should pull his head in and move his rook maybe to a5 or something like that. Instead, he doesn't have knight e7 check, and would knight b4 hang on? Still knight c8 though. Rook here, knight e4 played. So let's see, rook takes bishop, takes on c3. Well, that's an extra pawn for white, but not a very good one. You have to do it. And it looks like it's going to be, yeah, okay. So, hang on, no, is black a piece up? Black's a piece up if you take on d5. He did. So this is completely lost. Pawn takes, rook takes, knight c3, resigns. Piece down for nothing. So Harvey Zhu, the 13-year-old, has swindled his Melbourne opponent, and the 12th seed is going to win this one. But I guess it just shows that in an ending with this many pieces, it's almost like a middle game in that you have to calculate tactics all the time, and you can easily get your pieces caught on bad squares. So, yeah, around here, white has not, black has not got developed. It should be pretty easy for white to find a good way to play. But Zafirakis definitely didn't find it. So what's all that? Nothing. Okay, and I wonder, what about a knight e5 straight away? Just to stop that knight from moving so easily on b8. Could be good. Maybe black gets rook c8, but I don't believe it. So no, knight e5 looks like a good, healthy move where white will be better. Instead, he mucks around with his rooks, and the tricky knight does the rest. And this would certainly be a worthy addition to volume 2 of the Practical Endgame Guide, because there's a whole chapter on tricky knights. And yeah, this knight on d6, by not moving but by threatening to move, it does a wonderful job. Yep.
The game where Alex's game on the championships is not a mistake. He flagged on move 38, so that's why it says that.
Which one, Alex?
The one above it, 11.
Oh, Ryder.
So
White,
black flagged here. So that's his 1-0.
And he was getting 30-second increments?
Yes. He just forgot it was move 40. That's why it says that, so it's not a mistake.
He thought it was move 40?
Yes.
And he was 2 moves
It was
behind.
move 38, so he flagged.
And why did he think it was move 40?
I have no idea.
Yeah, the score sheet might give a reason. I mean, it's very easy on the score sheet to miss the bottom line, but it's very hard to miss the bottom 2 lines. So
Score sheet used to move 60.
So it's 30 down
No,
there.
he just forgot about it. Just got to move 38, just flagged, went, whoops, I forgot about 40 moves. So that's why that's 1-0.
19-year-olds don't do that without a reason. 60-year-olds do it regularly. So we might have to, yeah, if you have a chance to have a word to him.
We did. It was
Or
just
Ryder.
forgot.
Yeah. So he didn't give an explanation
No,
there.
just I completely forgot. I was thinking he just forgot.
Okay, it's possible.
That's
I lost a
fine.
game to Aronian by, he had 4 minutes, I had 4 minutes, he had 1. I just thought, I've got all the time in the world. I can analyse the position properly. And he apologised and said, sorry, your flag's gone down after 4 minutes, and that was that. So, yeah, it was, so it can happen, definitely can happen. Okay, we left this one with fairly well balanced. I thought it was a bit better for Testelin, but after takes, well, Minren is not trying to do anything spectacular. He's just looking for pressure. And it certainly is very, very pleasant pressure here for white. Now, whether white wants to play b4 or not, I don't know. So queen here, rook here. Queen a7 apparently doesn't do anything. Looks scary. Ooh, okay. The Nigel Short move that comes out of nowhere. So let's see what happens. Takes. Rook here. Is that queen dead? That queen on a7. If it is dead, why didn't we take with the rook? Because rook a8 wins then. Okay, so c5 is just devastating. It threatens rook a8. So he was hoping for queen a7. Wonderful idea. And this is getting to desperation stage. And now, what can white do? Serious desperation. Nice idea, but... And now, as I mentioned, there are various mates you can have with the king there. This is not one I thought of. Actually, why? I would have played queen f8 here. Isn't that game over? Yeah, queen f8 is game over. You can't take the bishop because of queen h6. I know what he overlooked. Okay, let's put this on a board. Okay, so quite a few of these are finished. So let's put this position on a board. Where's C2? It's left to C5 pawn. Any pawns on B2? Yes, we need 2 white pawns. There's one. There's another. Okay, so check, king here. What's that, sorry? Pawn E3 as well. Ah, okay. More pawns needed. Not that that one makes much difference, but okay. Okay, we're threatening mate. The move I thought would get out of it was bishop here, with the idea of rook takes c6, but probably rook back again is good enough. But then I thought about check, check, check. Oh, that's supposed to be a king. And checkmate. So Min Ren, who lost this game, had basically a forced checkmate. So again, if your opponent's in trouble, and clearly Ryder was in trouble a piece down, you've got to kick them when they're down. You don't say, okay, I've won a piece, I'm really happy, let's keep the game going. You keep looking for tactics. You're happy to take risks just in order to convert what you know is winning, but finishing them off earlier is definitely just part of technique. So queen e5, same sort of idea. Bishop d7 anyway. What? Still mate, queen h5 and rook h1. Come on. I wonder if Ryder saw that. Rook takes, rook here, just hanging on. Okay, there's another checkmate here. You play queen h5 check, king g1, bishop takes pawn. And if queen takes rook, then queen h1 is checkmate. And otherwise you just take the queen. Oh no, there is queen b, hang on, there's queen b8 check. Interrupts it. Yeah, so it's not forced mate. Okay, so what did he play? King g7, he wants to threaten that. Queen here, at least there are no discoveries. Check, king here. And in playing that move, he lost on time. And I have to say, he's made it hard for himself. I'm absolutely sure he's still winning, but White's going to have a passed pawn on the queen side, which either the king or the bishop, probably the bishop will have to protect, and might have a chance of making one on the other side. I think it's still winning because Black's king is much closer to the centre and therefore can charge in and take the queenside pawns. But it's certainly not game over or anything like that. So here, I don't know if White should play b4 or just swap queens. But no, neither of them look good enough. So I think it's completely winning for Min Ren. But as we heard, he just forgot about his clock. And the South Australian champion lost to the Oceania junior champion Ryder Testament. So that is his first game since becoming an international master, and it is one of the luckiest ones I've ever seen. So they say good players are lucky, but maybe they just mean title players are lucky. Okay, Zhang Jilin, is she still... Well, she'll still be very much alive. She could be the last game going here. Let's have a look. She did play A4. Okay, and then she put her knight on F5. So rook E1 played, knight F5. I don't think she wants to play knight D4 for a while, but she might want to swap pawns and play rook A8 and not play knight D4 when her rooks are active. She's always worse in a rook ending, lots of pawn islands, but certainly could be survivable. I don't actually see another plan for black, well, apart from taking on B3 and taking over the A file and hoping for the best, because it might be hard for white to organise a swap of rooks or anything like that. So, okay, white probably wants the king sitting on D3. Thanks for coming along. And, oh, no, tactics. Why didn't I see it? And sure, you can play king H7 and take back, but your king is super unstable there. We can go rook E4 and threaten rook G4 check perhaps, or if king H7 will start with rook E4. So yeah, that's really unnecessary. Oh, she just went knight back straight away. Pawn takes, knight takes. It is a horrible square for the knight, but it doesn't have to stay there forever. So that's not so terrible. He's going to take, isn't he? He'll definitely take. And there's no trick here. I don't think so. I'm trying to make knight here and knight here work, but I don't think it will. So all in all, that's maybe, oh well, maybe she's luring him forward. Takes, played. Remarkable. So it's really up to white to find a tactic here. Was rook E1 trying to play knight D4 again? I don't think so, but it's not impossible. So, okay, here we can put the knight on C6 if we want. Is it going to really help? We'll go rook A8 and maybe rook F8. Oh no, then you might go B4. So yeah, so maybe knight A7, knight C6, B4, because you have blocked the C file, and the A4 pawn could be a bit weak. So after knight A7, I guess I don't have time to take on B3 at all. King G2, well that is a bit on the slow side. Okay, so anything wrong with rook A8? Maybe, but if I'm worried, I can start with rook D7. So yeah, either way, white's knight won't have those options that the knight had before. Just a reminder, we're watching the first round of the Australian Chess Championship, and we have 3 results already. A win on board 2, second seed Yi Lu playing against Jesse Zafirakis. Then George C beat Daniel Wang, one of the youngest players in the field. Terence Tang made a quick draw with Su Kai-ji. Su Kai-ji was the 4th seed, but he arrived late. I didn't find out what the problem was, but those guys were finished in 5 minutes. So they're probably Su Kai-ji played a few moves, offered a draw, and his opponent thought, well, why not? I'm playing the 4th seed, and said yes. But normally Su Kai-ji would be playing very hard, so something's gone wrong today. I just don't know what it is. I'll try to find out overnight. Okay, any other results? Yes, we do have Biascalan. We left it with Barman Kargosha having given away 2 pieces for a rook, and the rest should be technique. And let's see if it was. Yeah, the pieces are just too strong. And actually that king is close to being in a mating net. By the way, the rook b3 check was a bit annoying because you can't go backwards because you lose your bishop with check, which is probably the thing that Bias Garland saw early. And yeah, the king up here, it's nearly in a mess already. And knight e7 just gets it out, and there could be e5 check at any moment. And this is also pretty good. So nothing is working. Okay, so that is a win for the 10th seed. Also, we saw Ryder Teslin, the 11th seed, win. Harvey Zhu, we left a piece up for nothing, so he will win. So the 12th seed will win. Let's go back to some of the other seeds. Ranch Chakrabarti has, well, he's both taken over and allowed black to take over. So it is a complicated position. We left it after knight c2, or just before knight c2, and instead of trying rook a2 and giving away the a3 pawn, Chakrabarti just decided to activate his pieces and keep the queens on. Now watch out for queen d8 check. So he stopped that, but the 7th rank is a bit scary. Queen here, getting ready for rook e7. Still getting ready for rook e7. And now is that a free pawn on a6? Could be. Queen takes a6. Looks fantastic. I guess he might lose a3 one day. So he keeps the pressure up, but he hasn't actually won that a6 pawn now. And here, well, he's being invited into an ending where white might not be better at all, even despite the horrible pawns. So black's king stuck on the back rank, double pawns, pretty bad pawns, but black's rook on c2 is good, and there is no easy way to guard that a3 pawn after a move like rook a2. So he decides to keep queens on the board. Please take them off. No, queen e5. So king moves, okay, and bishop e4. So Chakrabarti's done everything right, but if he's not mating, then black's pieces are fine. Now, there will be sometimes a queen a7 check if you're not careful. And here, rook e7, you can probably just go queen g6. So he went knight c5. That kills the queen a7 stuff. And now instead of losing the a pawn, so could he have, he can't take the a pawn because the knight's hanging. Okay, why couldn't he go knight d4 though? Okay, knight c5, a5. And I don't understand this completely. Bishop a8 looks weird. Oh, very nice little combination. So he was setting black up for this very nicely. So if here he goes rook e7, there is queen g6, but as soon as the bishop is not protecting the f5 pawn, he jumps all over it. Rook e7, very nice. And I think he's resigned. So Chakrabarti has won. In the end, it wasn't his positional play, it was his tactics that won the day. And really tough fight. It could easily have gone Odenthal's way, but both players just kept their pieces active and one was sharper than the other. So it's easy to miss rook g7 check because it wasn't on before, but yeah, absolutely devastating now. So our 7th seed has won as well. And Jack Rogers, the Olympic captain, has beaten the Tasmanian champion William Rumley with another Trompowsky opening. Now, I reckon that it's possible. Oh no, so far so good for Rumley. He's playing sensibly. That knight on e4 is almost perfect because if you can't play f3, it stays there forever. And here, the real question is, what are you going to do? White is going to go b4, a4, b5, that sort of thing. Now, there is a small risk your bishop on b8 could be out of the game for the rest of the game, but not too bad. But really, black should be setting up tactics around here to try to take on g3 and the e3 or something like that. Queen here, that's a cheap trick, threatening knight takes c5. Yeah, a5, I don't know. It encourages b4 rather than prevents it. So he's got every piece on a good square, plays b5, and now white is just killing him. There's a weakness and a very bad weakness. And finally, f3 was playable because there's no dark square bishop on g3, and that's already winning a piece. So sooner or later, Jack Rogers, I gave the piece back to be completely winning, and okay, and won the game. So yeah, black needed to do more here. I wonder if even castling was a little bit early, but this should not be bad for black. But you do need to find a way to break through. I wonder if you should be playing b5 or b6 really early, just to resolve the queen side so white doesn't get unlimited space on that side of the board. Because I don't think white is breaking through. Even if white plays knight f4, most of the time the sacrifices on h5 are not anything scary at all. So black should be fine. Trompowsky didn't work that well, but it was okay. So one of our veterans, Stephen Solomon, is on the bottom board against Pritam Kundu. Pritam Kundu is, well, he sort of came out of nowhere playing for Sydney Tech. They qualified for one of the playoffs for the New South Wales junior spot in the Australian Schools Championship. And he came out on board one for Sydney Tech, who were never going to win the competition, and he just killed everyone. And he did the same in a University of New South Wales versus the rest of the world match where he played on the opposition team. And again, he just kept beating people. So his Australian rating's gone up very fast to 2169. He hasn't appeared in that many tournaments. So Solomon has won. If I had to guess, I would say it was an endgame where he was losing, but that's probably not true because there's no way through for the white king and black can slowly maneuver. Maybe you should take that, you know. And now it's just a matter of finding the right squares for the right pieces. And that's allowed the c-pawn to run. Doesn't f4 win as well? Maybe he wasn't worried. Yeah, f4 would have won much more easily. Oh, he's going to block the bishop off. Okay. Okay, this is still winning, but at least you have a bit of work to do. But the pawns are blockaded, so it's game over. So, yeah, Solomon could have won it more easily, but good night against bad bishop. Yeah, just experience. 61-year-old up against someone who's 19, and it was just smooth. Just the sort of thing Solomon's been doing all his career. So let's go back up to board one because Zhangji Lin has found a new stupid square for a knight, which is h8. So even though I hate the way she's been playing this, it's not even worse for black, I think. So let's have a look. King G2, knight H8. Once she goes to F7, she doesn't have to worry about that knight, that pawn on D6 anymore. Rook FE3. Threatening F4, maybe. So she sort of stops it. I still want to play F4 and then put my rook on the 7th. I really, really want to play F4. But maybe she'll take once and play knight G6 and then guard the pawns like that. Or take once and play knight F7, similar sort of idea. And that may be playable. So I think white has to play F4. If you give black extra moves to go knight F7, then it's not really going to work. So yeah, there's no taking on A4. I like the way she's refused to release the tension on the queen side. Now, she's obviously decided that there is no danger of her opponent playing knight here, and then B4, even though I think it could be a very dangerous plan. So she's allowing it move after move. And she's right. Trevor Tower hasn't played that idea. And, well, maybe she should do it now, but he is having a bit of a think. They are after move 40. He has played F4, though. Okay, so he's going to break through with his rooks. There's no real danger there for white. You've got lots of good active pieces. But actually breaking through that knight on F7, well, I wonder if you could put one rook on E7, one rook on E6, and maybe go rook B7 or something like that. Could be good. So yeah, there's a few prospects here for white. He is very, very active, and he does have more time than his opponent. Just to check out others, the Grandmaster Darryl Johansson has won. Let's see how that happened. We left it after white had got a pawn on E5. Yeah, in fact, the transmission broke down a little bit here. So knight E4 was played. And now bishop takes knight is probably going to have to be played sometimes. But instead, knight F5. The knight itself is good, but we may be able to get in on D6 anyway. So knight C5. Maybe we can't, but the other one might. Takes. So we can play knight D2 if we want. Instead, knight G5. That's a good way of doing it. Threatening that pawn. Now you really, really don't want to play G6 and hem your bishop in. So he went bishop here. And bishop F3 is no good because of knight D4. But you can play knight E4 if you want. And that is what happened. Queen A7. And now, really? Bishop F3? Oh no, the knight's not on, hang on. Why is that knight not on F5? Because he didn't play knight F5. Sorry, he went knight C5. And that knight is still there. And so bishop F3 is becoming a serious move. Too often I've had the wrong position. Sorry about that. So rook FD8. Rook FD1. It's not as if that pawn is running away too much.